A very good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, do be so kind to take your seats, please. Ladies and gentlemen, may I invite you to take your seats, please.
Talking is always good. Berit, not Norway. Berit. Berit, not Norway. Berit from Norway. It's the grey hair lady, the longer hair with her.
But I know also a very good morning. Let me please start, ladies and gentlemen, this very session. Firstly, I would like to express my gratitude to His Excellency the Ambassador of Portugal, who yesterday at the very end of our long session did help me enormously chairing the finale grande of yesterday evening or afternoon session. Thank you, Ambassador. And let me please also remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that yesterday we did not finish to proceed Angola Historic Center of Banza, Kongo. And we do continue our discussion. It means that the floor goes to Finland. Finland, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everyone. It is very pleasing to start discussions about the nomination files with this property. It is not only a solid nomination, but also a very welcome addition to the World Heritage List from an underrepresented region. When comparing the original nomination file on which ICOMOS interim report is based with the final evaluation of ICOMOS, one realizes the enormous work the state party has done producing a fully revised file in just 2 months' time. This is a remarkable achievement which should serve as an example for other state parties. ICOMOS has made some changes regarding the criteria, and we think they are well argued and support the inscription of the nominated site on the World Heritage List. Lastly, I have a small reflection that I would like to share. The draft decision contains a number of recommendations from ICOMOS that we do support. I do, however, regret that there are some technical recommendations, such as the request to dismantle the telecommunications antenna, that are given more importance than the recommendation to continue further research. We are happy that also Portugal highlighted the issue of research in their speech yesterday. Research is the soul of our work and should be more emphasized also in the decisions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Jamaica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jamaica extends deep appreciation to the State Party of Angola for sharing an exceptional urban cultural landscape that captures the customary practices and religion of the people whose history it represents. This is another property that we can confidently say its story resonates far beyond national borders. It was from this urban center that the world saw the expansion of the Christian faith. Of significance, it was from Banza, Kongo, that enslaved people were transported to the Americas and the Caribbean. We're heartened by the State Party's spirit of openness in the evaluation process, having considered and taken on board recommendations that saw them fully revising their nomination dossier. Congratulations to Angola on their inscription to the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Zimbabwe. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you and good morning, Chair. Zimbabwe joins other colleagues in congratulating Angola for its first inscription. We are very pleased that this inscription is of a cultural center that emphasizes the general history of Africa. We are grateful for ICOMOS for its analysis and support, and also we urge the advisory bodies to really familiarize with the works that UNESCO has done on the general history of Africa, where the great kingdoms such as the Banza Kongo dynasty are located. This is more and more what we hope that will come out in terms of further research and assistance to research on African dynasties and some of the natural and cultural heritage that they left. We are also pleased with and support the recommendations that have been made by the delegate of Finland in terms of the recommendations made, particularly relating to further research in this area. The State Party has already, we understand, addressed some of the concerns regarding the telecommunications antenna and looking at other areas of the airport runway which have been recommended, but we ask the center to support them in further research into other sites that are related to this kingdom. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, the United Republic of Tanzania. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. The facts provided by the ICOMOS on the OUV of the Banza Kongo property under criteria 3 and 4 are clear and eminent of the existence of African civilization during the pre-colonial era that the state of Banza Kongo stood out to maintain its sacred and symbolic function for over a period of 4 decades. Chairperson, the importance of inscribing this property is twofold. One, it provides an opportunity for the State Party of Angola to preserve the African pre-colonial and the colonial history, and secondly, it is an attestation of the contribution of African civilization to the rest of the world. Chairperson, we concur with the recommendation provided by ICOMOS to inscribe the Banza, Kongo, vestiges of the capital of the former Kingdom Congo, Angola, on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 3 and 4. We support the other recommendations in the proposed decision that should be given consideration by the state party. These recommendations include dismantling of the telecommunications antenna as planned, confirm the transversal management systems functioning, provide details of actions, persons responsible, and the funding of the conservation system. Finally, the urbanism regulations, devise a tourism management strategy, and draw up specific monitoring indicators. Chair, according to the available information, these recommendations are at various levels of implementation, as it has also been stated by the distinguished delegate from Zimbabwe. However, on the issue of the airport runway, which should be removed, which is in the buffer zone, the state party will soon initiate implementation of a new, modern, and a larger airport project. It is with this spirit that we have made amendment to the draft decision by rephrasing para 4B and extending the time of reporting to allow for the removal of the runway. Congratulations, Angola, and thank you.
Thank you. And now the floor goes to Cuba. Cuba, the floor is yours.
Gracias, señor presidente. Cuba también quiere reconocer, en primer lugar, el proceso para llegar a esta decisión, en el cual, sin dudas, hay una voluntad clara del Estado parte y la contribución tanto de órganos consultivos y secretaría para hoy poder evaluar un sitio que sin duda tiene un valor universal excepcional y una contribución efectiva a esos procesos que hemos identificado a lo largo de los años para la necesidad de una lista balanceada y además de ir llenando esos vacíos que en el caso de África sobre todo se hacen muy particulares. También queremos reconocer la voluntad de Portugal en aras de lograr una contribución a esas recomendaciones vinculadas con profundizar en los procesos de investigación. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now, Turkey. Turkey, you have the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The property is coming to the forefront within African geography with very unique values, and we believe this inscription will add very much value to the World Heritage List. We appreciate ICOMOS for its great support and contribution to the evaluation by addition of criterion 4, as well as providing guidance to the state party for a better formulation of the dossier for inscription. Also, we congratulate the state party for fulfilling ICOMOS' recommendation enthusiastically in a very short period of time. This example shows us how a better dialogue and collaboration be achieved through evaluation process. We support the recommendation by the distinguished delegation of Finland as to formulate the recommendations in an order of priorities, and additionally recommend this formulation is applied to all draft decisions. We definitely support the draft decision and congratulate the first inscription of the state party since it became a party to the convention in 2091. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Kuwait. The floor goes to Kuwait. Excellency.
شكرا سعادة الرئيس. في البداية أهني حكومة أنغولا على هذا العمل، ودولة الكويت وفد بلادي يؤيد المقترح الذي تقدمت به تنزانيا في شأن التعديلات. شكرا.
Thank you. Philippines. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Philippines extends its warm congratulations to the State Party of Angola on its first World Heritage Site, Banza, Kongo. This inscription is very much welcomed by the committee, as it is an addition to a less represented region of Africa in the World Heritage List. We hope that the State Party will continue its commitment to safeguard the property's OUV. We thank the State Party for the dismantling of the telecommunications antennae, and we look forward to its complete removal. We also hope to see the removal of the airport runway to pave the way for further archaeological research within the property. As this is the first World Heritage Site of Angola, we urge the State Party to devise a tourism management strategy in line with the 1972 Convention. We wish the very best for the State Party, and we look forward to their further cooperation with the World Heritage Center and the advisory bodies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam. Indonesia, the floor is yours, Excellency.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Indonesia would like to congratulate the government of Angola on the inscription of the historic center of Banza, Kongo, the former capital of the former Kingdom of Congo, as World Cultural Heritage. We also would like to commend the State Party for its excellent work in refining dossier to meet the standard of operational guidelines, with the close cooperation with the advisory body. Indonesia hopes that the hard work shown by the government of Angola will inspire the other state parties. We believe that it is a very special moment for the government and the people of Angola, as it is the first inscription in the World Heritage List. We sincerely hope that this inscription will further encourage the State Party to strengthen their efforts to protect and conserve the property. Indonesia is confident that the State Party will fully implement the decision of the committee and maintain its close work with the advisory body. Once again, we would like to congratulate the government and the people of Angola. We look forward to seeing more nominations from the State Party in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And now Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan, the floor is yours, Excellency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Azerbaijan also commends the State Party with this successful nomination. Indeed, the center of Banza, Kongo, represents an outstanding example of the architectural ensemble that illustrates that, as nowhere else can in sub-Saharan Africa, the profound changes that emanated from the introduction of Christianity and the arrival of the Portuguese into the Central Africa. We encourage the State Party to continue its dialogue with the advisory bodies, namely to remove all those obstacles which can potentially impact the OUV. And in the conclusion, my country congratulates wholeheartedly the Angola with this first inscription to the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And it was the last intervention concerning the distinguished committee members. It means that I can now pass the floor to ICOMOS. ICOMOS, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. ICOMOS would like to make two brief points. The first is concerned with the draft amendment. So it's not showing it. So the first is concerned to the recommendation in concerning further research. In the point 4B of the draft decision, which will want to clarify that the further detailed archaeological investigation are actually concerned to the airport project and not with the overall recommendation, which is for further research, which that appears as an additional recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, ICOMOS. It means that the floor goes to Mr. Muhammad Juma. Mr. Rapporteur, have you received an amendment on the draft decision proposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we have received an amendment from distinguished delegate of Tanzania, as they said. If we look at the draft decision, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, they remain as it is. Paragraph 4 as well. The first part of paragraph 4A, no amendment. Second part of it, B, the proposal is to remove the first part and add, ensure that the airport runway is removed after the new airport is constructed and is operational, and therefore undertaking detailed archaeological investigation to identify the location of graves, former church, and other remaining links to the historical center. The rest of paragraphs has not been altered. Paragraph 5, there is a slight modification of the date. The new paragraph read, request the state party to submit to the World Heritage Center by December 2022 instead of 2019, a report on the implementation of the above mentioned recommendation. The last paragraph 6 has not been altered. This is what has been proposed by the distinguished delegate of Tanzania. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rapporteur. So the situation is pretty clear and easy, but anyway, we shall visit the whole draft decision step by step. Portugal wishes to take the floor. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and a very good morning to you. I'll just to express our support for the modifications suggested by Tanzania. The issue of the airport, it does seem to us reasonable.
Shall we have...
No, because this is a general comment, sorry, sir.
I'm sorry.
And does not affect the integrity of the property, and will allow in turn for further research to be made. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador. So, para 1 adopted, para 2 adopted, para 3, which is pretty long. Shall we go further on? Adopted. Para 4. Adopted as amended. Para 5. ICOMOS wants to comment the dates, as I understand. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the date, ICOMOS would like to flag the fact that the recommendations are more concerning to conservation and protection, for instance, finalizing the urban regulations and other recommendations, which we think that it would be the proposed date to 2022 will be too far to actually report that it should be actually reported earlier, which doesn't actually imply that all the work has to be actually carried on by the date of the report.
But could you kindly, if so, could you kindly propose the date? Portugal, Excellency, if you could help us, please.
I'm not going to help you. I would just suggest that perhaps you ask the delegation of Angola what is the suitable, in light of what ICOMOS has just said, which I think is a useful clarification, what is the time span that suits their purpose in this matter. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Excellency. You are not aware that anyway you did help us. Angola, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La délégation de l'Angola voulait proposer la date de 2020. C'est le temps que nous avons besoin pour élaborer et faire la continuation de l'application des recommandations que nous avons apprises aujourd'hui. Merci.
Merci. So I understand the problem has been just solved. 2020. If so, adopted as amended, and para 6 adopted. It means that now I have the pleasure to declare decision 41,8b.10 adopted. Let me please congratulate Angola on behalf of the entire committee for the inscription of this property. Angola, you have the floor for a brief statement.
Monsieur le Président du Comité du patrimoine mondial, Mesdames et Messieurs, nous aimerions féliciter dans un premier temps la République de la Pologne pour son excellente organisation et son accueil dans cette belle ville historique de Cracovie. C'est un immense plaisir et une grande joie pour le gouvernement angolais et pour moi-même de voir la vie historique de Banza Kongo inscrite sur la liste du patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO. Votre décision permet ainsi à l'État partie de l'Angola inscrire son premier site sur la prestigieuse liste du patrimoine mondial. Nous vous en remercions infiniment. Pour atteindre cet objectif, le chemin a été long et semé d'embûches, mais grâce à notre volonté et l'appui de nombreuses personnes et institutions, en particulier le président de la République de l'Angola, José Eduardo dos Santos, l'inscription a été rendue possible. Permettez-moi de remercier particulièrement le Centre du patrimoine mondial, l'ICOMOS, et le Fonds pour le patrimoine mondial africain pour leur conseil et leur accompagnement efficace. Nous remercions également l'Union africaine, les pays membres de la SADC, du CPLP pour leur appui institutionnel et de la diplomatie culturelle partagée. Monsieur le Président, l'Angola est doté d'un patrimoine naturel et culturel extrêmement riche et varié, méritant une meilleure représentation sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Nous prenons donc l'engagement de continuer à travailler pour maintenir la valeur universelle et exceptionnelle et renforcer la protection du site en accord avec les recommandations du ICOMOS. Enfin, nous aimerions dire que l'inscription de Banza Kongo servira pour maintenir cet héritage historique comme un lieu de mémoire de toute la communauté qui font partie de cet espace, notamment la République démocratique du Congo, la République du Congo et la République du Gabon, sans pourtant oublier la diaspora Congo, mais aussi pour la promotion de la culture de la paix entre le peuple et en vue de la préservation de la mémoire collective et garantir le bien-être dans le cadre d'un développement durable. Je vous remercie.
Merci. Thank you very much, Excellency, but it is not the end of celebrations as Angola is concerned. Brazil wishes to take the floor. Brazil, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Last May, the Ministers of Culture of the Portuguese-speaking countries community, CPLP, adopted a resolution declaring their support to Banza Kongo nomination. Brazil, in its national capacity and as President pro tempore of that community, would like to congratulate Angola for the inscription of its first property in the World Heritage List. The Portuguese-speaking countries community and UNESCO share many principles and values. Both organizations believe that through the protection of our common heritage and the promotion of the cultural diversity of our people, we can cooperate to foster dialogue and build peace. Congratulations from Banza Kongo, Angola. Parabéns.
Obrigado. Thank you. And now, France. France, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La délégation française souhaite également féliciter l'Angola pour cette inscription du site de Banza, Congo, des vestiges de la capitale de l'ancien royaume du Congo, et remercier notre comité du patrimoine mondial pour avoir réalisé cette inscription au patrimoine mondial de l'humanité. C'est en effet un site exemplaire, exemplaire aussi par la coopération internationale qui a abouti à son inscription, et nous sommes très heureux que l'Institut national de recherche archéologique préventive français ait pu contribuer par sa pierre à cette mise en valeur d'un site exceptionnel, culturel de notre planète. Je vous remercie.
Merci. Thank you very much, Excellency. And it was the last intervention as Angola is concerned. We can move now to item 41.8b.11, which means a draft decision concerning Eritrea, Asmara, Africa's modernist city. I now invite ICOMOS to present the nomination of Asmara, Africa's modernist city, Eritrea. But before, I would like to give the floor to the Secretariat. Mr. Balsamo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. We received a notification for a factual error in the evaluation of this nomination, which is to be found on page 54 of the English version of document in faith before, and on page 77 of the French version of the same document. And this notification has some little impacts on the statement of OUV that are being already incorporated in our version. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And now the floor goes to ICOMOS. ICOMOS, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm now presenting the ICOMOS evaluation of Asmara, Africa's modernist city in Eritrea. The text of this evaluation can be found at page 45 of the document IMF 8B1. The nominated property includes the historic perimeter of Asmara, which emerged from successive phases of planning during the Italian colonial occupation between 1885 and 1941. The property includes the urban layout of the city, resulting from different plans based on orthogonal grid and incorporating elements of the radial system and picturesque elements, and a large number of buildings designed in the early modernist and rationalist architectural language of the fascist era. It also includes the area formerly occupied by pre-existing settlement of Akhbati Asmara and the subsequent indigenous quota of Abshawal. The modernist city of Asmara, the nation's capital, is located on the highland plateau at the center of Eritrea. The nominated property has a total area of 1,684 hectares. The Asmara historical perimeter encompasses 15 geographic areas based on Asmara urban planning processes. Asmara urban layout illustrates the adaptation of modern urban planning and architectural models to local cultural and geographical conditions. Evolving from a nascent colonial settlement in the 19th century, the Campo Citato, to the center of Italy's expanding East Africa empire by the mid-1930s, many buildings designed in the early modernist and rationalist architectural language of the fascist era attest to the extreme encounter with modernity following Italy's invasion of Ethiopia in 1935. The elements of the urban architecture, the buildings, complex and facilities resulting from different urban planning programs, the residential complex and buildings, the commercial buildings, the core of community quarters, such as the Italian quarter or the Muslim quarter, the commercial areas and the major religious places, marking the landscape with bell towers and minarets, the administrative area with ministerial buildings, and the main trade route, all contribute to Asmara's urban character and strong urban form, which exhibits a human scale in the relationship between building, street, open spaces, and related activities, all adapt to the local conditions, which embody both colonial and post-colonial African life. In its evaluation, ICOMOS considered that the comparative analysis justified consideration of this property for the World Heritage List and that the conditions of integrity and authenticity have been met. ICOMOS has found that out of the 3 criteria under which the property has been nominated, 2, which is criteria 2 and 4, have been fully justified, thanks also to the focused additional information provided by the third party during the evaluation process. Although criteria 3 was found not relevant in relation to the capacity of the property to exhibit through its tangible evidence the proposed associated values, which suggest a national scope, the justification for criteria 2 expresses powerfully the dynamic process of cultural interchange that underlie the strong associations between Eritreans and their capital city and the role it played in the struggle for self-determination. ICOMOS also considers that the boundaries of the nominated property and of its buffer zone are adequate and that the premises for legal protection have been set up through the approval of the Cultural and Natural Heritage Proclamation of 2015. However, the actual legal protection will be adequate when the implementation of the Cultural and Natural Heritage Proclamation of 2015 is in place. Similarly, ICOMOS considers that the management system for the property will be adequate when all plans, regulations, and guidelines currently under development, particularly the Urban Conservation Master Plan and the Asmara planning norms and technical regulations, are finalized, approved, and implemented. In conclusion, ICOMOS recommends that Asmara, Africa's modernist city, be inscribed on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 2 and 4. ICOMOS recommends that the state party give consideration to issuing specific protective designation for the property as per the provisions of the Cultural and Natural Heritage Proclamation of 2015, finalizing the Urban Conservation Master Plan and the Asmara planning norms and technical regulations, developing strategy to ensure a steady influx of financial resources and considerable institutional and technical capacity, setting up a central management body envisioned by the Integrated Management Plan based on the existing capacities and functioning structures, clarifying the geographical coordinates of the property and of the buffer zone, and submitting to the World Heritage Center by the 1st December 2018 a state of conservation report on the progress on the above-mentioned recommendations for examination by the World Heritage Committee in its 43rd session in 2019. Moreover, ICOMOS recommends that the name of the property be modified to become Asmara, a modernist city of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, ICOMOS. It means, thank you for your presentation, and it means that now I invite the committee members to express their comments. Zimbabwe. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairperson. Zimbabwe congratulates the State Party of Eritrea for submitting this well-supported inscription on Asmara. Zimbabwe notes with satisfaction that the advisory bodies are fully satisfied that the site meets criteria 2 and 4. Chairperson, Asmara's significance lies in its planning, which is a remarkable example of colonial city planning based on functional and racial segregation principles that were adapted to the local geographic conditions. Equally remarkable is that Asmara, despite its colonial associations, is also closely linked with the struggle for of the Eritrean people for self-determination. We are therefore not inscribing colonial history, but a blend of colonial and post-colonial life. The criteria on which the properties being inscribed have been adequately supported, and the State Party has put in place the necessary management and protection mechanisms to ensure the OUV of the property is safeguarded. We understand the State Party is comfortable with the recommendation by the advisory bodies to change the title to Asmara, a modernist city of Africa. We also recommend and support the ICOMOS recommendation that there be further discussion with the advisory bodies on the boundary issue in order to allow for future urban development within Asmara. Once again, Chairperson, we support the inscription of Asmara and congratulate Eritrea. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Now, Lebanon. The floor is yours, sir.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président. La nomination de la ville moderniste d'Asmara sur la liste du patrimoine mondial vient combler un vide dans la liste. Il est clair que toutes les études montrent qu'il y a une sous-représentation du patrimoine moderne dans la liste du patrimoine mondial et plus particulièrement le patrimoine moderne en Afrique. Nous espérons que cette nomination ouvre la porte à d'autres nominations. Par exemple, si la situation en Libye s'améliore, la nomination du quartier italien à Benghazi, par exemple, ou de nouveau la nomination de Casablanca qui a été retirée et qui est quand même extrêmement importante. Nous pensons réellement qu'il y a un travail très important à faire. Et peut-être que ce serait intéressant de voir avec l'ICOMOS si on ne peut pas faire une étude thématique ou lancer une étude thématique sur le patrimoine moderne en Afrique, puisque c'est réellement un point qui nous semble extrêmement intéressant et extrêmement important. Merci.
Thank you. Now, the Republic of Korea. The floor is yours, Excellency.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We wholeheartedly congratulate the State Party of Eritrea on their first inscription and would like to join others in conveying our strong support and delight on this very happy moment and happy occasion. The futurist modernism architecture of Asmara is well preserved in numerous examples, and it is also a strong witness to urban planning of the early 20th century using the zoning principle for segregating race and organizing functions. The inscription of urban properties from the 20th century also helps in achieving diversity of heritage types on the list. Urban heritage is dynamic and living, but by its nature, it can be easily changed by development. We recognize the difficult task of maintaining the level of change in the city, and we hope that the protective designations for the property and the finalization of the urban conservation master plan are well implemented as recommended. Thank you. Congratulations once again.
Thank you. The United Republic of Tanzania. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Excellency Chair. Tanzania concurs with the recommendation to inscribe Asmara, Africa's modernist city, Eritrea, on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 2 and 4. On the issue of the name, Tanzania will go with the name that will be confirmed by the State Party. And for this matter, if the Chair agrees, would want to be invited to confirm the name. Tanzania congratulates the State Party of Eritrea for inscribing her capital city as a World Heritage Property under criteria 2 and 4. Asmara's urban character and a strong urban form exhibits a human scale in the relationship between buildings, streets, open spaces, and activities adapted to local conditions, which embodies both colonial and post-colonial African life. Chairperson, many capital cities, for example, the African capital cities in the context, had their architecture and the planning from colonial times, yet have not managed to attribute them with World Heritage Outstanding Investor status, as Eritrea has succeeded. Chairperson, it is in this particularity of being a testimony of a cultural civilization which is living and the preserved architectural structures and the original urban layout, including most of their characteristics, features, and the public spaces retain their entirety, which makes Asmara to stand out of the rest. Chairperson, Tanzania supports and encourages the state party to set up the central management body as envisaged in the property's integrated management plan as key to ensure all recommendations made by the advisory bodies for the appropriate conservation of the site. Based on the above background, we support and congratulate Eritrea. Congratulations, Eritrea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, Kuwait. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ma délégation appuie la recommandation de l'ICOMOS pour l'inscription de la ville d'Asmara, capitale de Érythrée, sur la liste du patrimoine mondial sous le titre Asmara, ville de l'Afrique modernisée. Sur les bases des critères 2 et 4, l'évolution de l'architecture est un exemple concret sur la qualité de la construction ou de l'architecture ou un exemple technique. Cette ville unique contient l'une des plus grandes collections de l'architecture moderniste dans le monde. Depuis plusieurs siècles, la ville d'Asmara a été influencée par différentes cultures, religions et dirigeants égyptiens, ottomans et européens. Ces dernières ont laissé leurs traces sur le monument de la culture et de l'architecture, en particulier la culture italienne qui a laissé une marque forte dans l'architecture de la ville. Tout en félicitant l'État parti pour ses efforts. Le Koweït recommande l'inscription de cette ville magnifique dans la liste du patrimoine mondial et rejoint les autres délégations qui ont parlé avant moi. Merci.
Merci. Merci. Thank you. And now, Jamaica. Jamaica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jamaica congratulates the State Party of Eritrea for the nomination of Asmara, Africa's modernist city, under criteria 2 and 4. Designed by Italian architects and engineers, the urban scape of Asmara followed the models for colonial planned cities and shows how colonial planning was applied and adapted to the local conditions to achieve symbolic messages and functional requirements. The town includes open spaces, public and private buildings, religious structures, industrial facilities, and private homes. This unusual urban environment is influenced by the natural features of the environment and the pre-existing settlements. Jamaica urges the State Party to fulfill the requests from ICOMOS, which include finishing the Urban Conservation Master Plan and providing additional information on the building techniques, materials, and forms used in the construction of the town and its buildings. Again, we support the inscription of Asmara and express our congratulations to the State Party for sharing this special site with the world. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam. Indonesia. Indonesia has the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Indonesia would like to congratulate Eritrea for its first property listed in the World Heritage List. We acknowledge that the city is an outstanding example of well-preserved colonial planned city, which also exhibits a human skill in the relationship between building, street, open spaces, and the related activities. Although we note with concern that there is an indication of uncontrolled development in the nominated property, we are confident that the State Party will work closely with the advisory body and the Secretariat to prepare a sufficient management plan to handle this issue. Once again, Indonesia supports the inscription of the Asmara under the criteria 2 and 4. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the floor goes to Finland. Finland, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. In Finland's view, the State Party of Eritrea has made a significant achievement on the nomination file. To us, it is quite clear that the property demonstrates outstanding universal value. We are happy to see yet another urban heritage site to enter the World Heritage List. The exceptionally well-preserved planned urban ensemble outstandingly conveys how colonial planning was applied and adapted to the local geographical conditions to achieve symbolic messages and functional requirements. We sincerely want to congratulate the State Party on their first site to be inscribed on the World Heritage List. Thank you.
The floor goes to Turkey. And thank you, Finland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We think Asmara to be a very important example with its unique type of urban planning, which was creatively combined local character with rationalist, modernist planning principles. What we would like to highlight by this inscription is the great contribution that Asmara's acceptance will make to the ongoing theoretical discussions about modernity and modernism in the African continent and about the impacts of urbanization, since such discussions have always been limited to known examples, mainly in the West and to some extent in the East. Following the inscription, the site will come to be known much more, we hope, than before, and therefore will serve as a school in itself in the field of urban planning. It's very happy to see that the convention is not only a way to protect and promote heritage, but also adding such values to the enlarging literature. Therefore, we firstly thank Eritrea for this precious, unique nomination, and then congratulate them for its first inscription. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Philippines. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was a wonderful dossier. Asmara is a true gem, and this nomination has been much awaited. The Philippines welcomes the inscription of this property and congratulates Eritrea not only for the work done on this nomination, but for the efforts it has made to ensure its conservation, despite obvious limited resources. We enjoin the international community to continue to contribute to the conservation of this wonderful modernist city. We support the draft decision fully and extend our congratulations to Eritrea on its first inscription. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And now Vietnam. Vietnam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Vietnam supports to inscribe this list in the World Heritage List, this site in the World Heritage List. And we also commend the efforts made by the State Party in implementing measures to protect and manage the property. We also encourage the State Party to develop strategy to ensure financial and human resources and also technical capacity. And once again, we congratulate the State Party to the first property listed in the World Heritage List. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now, Poland. The floor goes to Poland. There.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Asmara is a significant example of implementation of modern architectural structure and innovative urban layouts. That's why we would like to support the recommendation of advisory body to inscribe the Asmara, Africa's modernist city, on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 2 and 4 as recommended by advisory body. Consequently, would like to sincerely congratulate the State Party of Eritrea for very effective preparation of its first inscription on the World Heritage List, which makes us very happy that it would happen in Poland, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Now Portugal. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, a lot has already been said. I'll try not to repeat, but we are before a nomination of a 20th century property that encompasses multiple stories and experiences. And let me present from the outset my warmest congratulations to Eritrea for its inscription on the World Heritage List. Asmara is a very significant nomination. Of the several Eritrean towns and cities planned in the 1910s through to the 1930s, none were as large or as fully developed as Asmara. And none was so abundant in modernist architecture or achieved such importance in the post-colonial era in terms of the formation of a national identity. Asmara is an outstanding example of a modernist urban landscape in an African setting, through an exceptional urban planning process that encompasses the whole city and combines local, natural and cultural conditions. Portugal does support ICOMOS' recommendation that Asmara be inscribed on the World Heritage List and further encourages the state party to continue on investing on its rehabilitation and conservation. Mr. President, I believe that this is an excellent example of how useful the close cooperation between the state party and advisory bodies can be in terms of the presentation of consistent candidatures to this committee. I believe that the recognition of the outstanding universal value of Asmara today is another very happy event of this 41st committee session. On a related issue which was suggested by our good friend from Lebanon concerning a study on the modern heritage in Africa, of course, we support it fully. We think it is an excellent idea, and we would be ready Portugal will be ready to cooperate closely in this endeavor. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, Angola. The floor goes to Angola. Angola, the floor is yours.
Monsieur le Président, merci. Nous joignons notre voix à tous ceux qui nous ont précédés pour féliciter l'Érythrée État membre pour cette première proposition d'inscription et appuyer les recommandations qui ont été faites par les organes consultatifs. Nous voulons tout simplement marquer aussi notre sensibilité à la proposition qui vient d'être faite par le Liban. Il semble là qu'effectivement nous avons une bonne référence pour ce qu'il y a un potentiel au niveau des villes africaines de manière à ce que nous puissions allier l'harmonie de continuité entre l'époque précoloniale, l'époque coloniale et le modernisme qui s'ensuit. Nous félicitons l'État membre et nous sommes d'accord en appuyant l'inscription de ce point, de ce site sur la liste du patrimoine mondial.
Merci. Now, Burkina Faso. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ma délégation voudrait partager également les positions qui ont été exprimées favorablement aux recommandations formulées par l'organisation consultative qui est favorable à l'inscription du site durant cette session du comité. Nous notons particulièrement le caractère exceptionnel d'Asmara dans la sous-région et dans son contexte historique, surtout la singularité du schéma directeur et de gestion proposé. Mon pays félicite l'État partie pour avoir révélé ainsi à la communauté internationale ce joyau, témoin d'une culture urbaine exceptionnelle en Afrique. Nous appuyons donc totalement la recommandation d'inscription du site sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci.
Merci. Now, Tunisia, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Dans la suite de ce qu'ont dit mes distingués ambassadeurs, la Tunisie soutient et applaudit l'inscription d'Asmara sur la liste du patrimoine mondial, tout en remerciant et félicitant l'État partie pour cette remarquable réalisation. Merci.
Merci. Thank you. So now I would like to ask ICOMOS if you would like to comment this very issue or not. I do not see any demand and any wish to take the floor. If so, we can go, thank you, we can go directly to the rapporteur. The rapporteur, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We don't have any amendment on this draft decision.
Great. It is really great. Which means that my life at the moment is really easy. I have a real pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to declare decision 41-COM8B.11 adopted. Yes. Let me please congratulate Eritrea on behalf of the entire committee for the first inscription on the World Heritage List. It is a very good beginning. Eritrea, you have the floor for a brief 2 minutes. Let me please remind you all, if I may, that the best space and the best moment for congratulations is, sorry to say so, outside this very hall. I wonder if Eritrea anyway wishes to take the floor. If wishes and is not able to take the floor, what should I say? Poor. Excellency, would you like to take the floor or not? I see that yes. Good. So the floor is yours. I would like to ask you kindly for a brief 2-minute statement. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ministers, dear delegates, and Polish authorities and people who have made us so welcome in your beloved city of Krakow. This is the first time in the history of UNESCO and the history of our country that the State Party of Eritrea has had the honor of addressing this meeting. It is therefore with great pleasure that we address you all on the occasion of Asmara's inscription onto the World Heritage List. Asmara, our beloved capital, is Eritrea's first ever World Heritage Site. The city's recognition as heritage site of outstanding universal value fills us with tremendous pride and joy, but also a profound sense of responsibility and duty. We pledge to respect and uphold the obligations of the World Heritage Convention, but not only protecting Asmara, but also by redoubling our efforts to protect our nation's natural and cultural sites, some of which we look forward to submitting to this committee in the near future. Mr. Chairman, we welcome your acknowledgement of Africa's underrepresentation on the World Heritage List, and we are proud to be part of the concerted effort by the international community to redress this imbalance. We would therefore like to sincerely thank the World Heritage Center and advisory bodies, especially ICOMOS, for their support throughout the nomination process, and to express our profound gratitude to all those that have supported this nomination, meaning the embassies of Norway, Italy, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom in Eritrea, the European Union, the Gage Foundation, the Royal Institute of British Architects, and the different governmental and non-governmental bodies nationally and internationally. Above all, we want to thank all Eritreans at home and abroad who have been so united in celebrating and protecting Asmara, and who all warmly welcome you to Asmara. Distinguished delegates, we thank you all for the confidence you have shown us in granting us this honor. We look forward to welcoming you to beautiful Asmara. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It is not the end of our happiness concerning Asmara. Italy. Italy wishes to take the floor. The floor is yours. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Italy wishes to express to Eritrea its great appreciation for the successful inscription of the city of Asmara in the World Heritage List. Asmara, Africa's modernest city, is the first site for the state of Eritrea to become part of this important list. It is a great achievement, and we would like to commend the Eritrean authorities, in particular the AHP, Asmara Heritage Project, for all their efforts and for the remarkable work of research and preparation of the dossier leading to this very valuable inscription, which will no doubt benefit the country and the entire continent. May Asmara, which is one of the most complete and significant collection of modern architecture in the world, be the first site of many others in Eritrea. We wish you all the best on this very cheerful occasion. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we can move on to item 41.8b.12, a draft decision concerning South Africa, Khomani culture landscape. I now invite ICOMOS to present the nomination of the Khomani culture landscape, but before I give the floor to the Secretariat. Mr. Balsamo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We received a factual error notification concerning the evaluation of this nomination from South Africa, and this notification is to be found on page 114 for the English version of document in faith before, and on page 43 of the French version of the same document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Balsamo. And now the floor goes to ICOMOS.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm now presenting the ICOMOS evaluation for the Khomani cultural landscape, South Africa. With regard to the factual error letters, ICOMOS has acknowledged some of them, and we also had a meeting that further had clarified some points concerning the concerns of the state party. The Khomani cultural landscape is located at the border with Botswana and Namibia and coincides with the Kalahari-Gemsbok National Park, which is included in a larger protected area, the Kagalahadi Transfrontier Park, between Botswana and South Africa. It is a large desert area extending over the interior plateau of southern Africa and occupying Botswana, eastern Namibia, and northern South Africa. It features sparse vegetation, occasional trees, and dry riverbeds of the Nosob and Awob rivers, with underground water flows for the vegetation that allow vegetation to grow. This large expanse of sand dunes and associated physical feature contain evidence of human occupation from the Stone Age to the present, and is set to attest to the adaptive responses and the interaction of various sand communities, past and present, and to be associated today with the Khomani San. Khomani San people are formerly nomadic population who elaborated subsistence strategies to cope with the extreme environmental conditions. They developed a specific botanical and traditional knowledge, cultural practices, and worldviews. However, not much of this is explained in the nomination dossier. The nominated property was a domain of hunter-gatherers belonging to the Xam linguistic group that emerged 20,000 years before present. Some 2,000 years before present, Kirkoan herders migrated into southern Africa and progressively assimilated and supplanted the indigenous population. Subsequently, Bantu-speaking people reached the region and encroached the space of the San. Substantial disturbance and change were to come with the colonial and post-colonial era. Increasing occupation and colonizations of larger areas reduced the territory available to groups of indigenous or indigenized peoples. The creation of the Kalahari-Gemsbok National Park in 1931 led to the relocation of the population, who was given lands along the southern edge of the park. But the situation was to worsen after World War II, as access was prevented, and so was traditional hunting. A joint land claim for the restitution of their lands has been successfully settled a few years ago by the Khomani, and the land was then transferred to the Khomani San Community Property Association. These lands include a number of farms outside the property. ICOMOS noted that the current proposals, although covers an underrepresented type of landscape, appears rather premature under several perspectives. The property is not sufficiently documented in the dossier and in the additional information that have been provided to ICOMOS upon request. Much of the documentation and of the justification for inscription focus on the Khomani San people, on their language, and their successfully settled land claim, rather than on the nominated property and on the attributes that support the association between the landscape and the people. The comparative analysis
has not addressed critical properties on the tentative list of Botswana and Namibia that are associated with San people, and so in ICOMOS views has not succeeded in showing how and to what extent the nominated property is distinct from the other two. The argument that the nominated property relates to the Khomani San while the other landscapes relate to different San groups, in ICOMOS view, are not sufficient to justify at this stage consideration of this property and may suggest a different nomination strategy. Integrity also has posed questions as the historical cultural landscape of the San people and of the Khomani was much wider than the nominated property, which then represent, in ICOMOS view, only a portion of the San associative landscape. Authenticity raises issues as well, as the file has not provided sufficient evidence to demonstrate how and to what extent the nominated landscape reflect tangible and long-lasting association with the Khomani San, or their interaction with the environment. Currently, only a few San individuals working for the park reside in the property, but San settlements are located outside this associative landscape, at some 70 kilometers away from the property. ICOMOS considered that this distance between the current settlements and their associative territory may have negative impact on the sustenance of the association between the people and the landscape, and this may be further weakened by impacts of increasing tourism. At this stage, none of the criteria appear justified, although criterion 5 and 6 could be in the future, because the arguments that have been presented are not adequately supported by archaeological, anthropological, or other historical scientific evidence and research. The wording of some criteria also appears problematic as they focus on the people rather than on the property. The boundaries do not appear adequate at this stage. On the other hand, legal protection in place can be considered adequate, and it has been clarified with the state party the role that is played by the National Heritage Resource Act within protected areas. Although, in ICOMOS view, it could be strengthened following inventorying and mapping. Protective measures also requires regular updating and reciprocal coordination, and for effective management, a clear hierarchy among the existing plans is needed, particularly with regard to the cultural dimensions of this property. The management system needs reinforcement by empowering and supporting the communities in their managerial and leadership function. Inventorying of cultural attributes appear at an early stage and are in need of urgent continuation and resources in order to establish a solid basis for understanding and conservation of the property. Therefore, ICOMOS recommends that the Khomani cultural landscape, the Republic of South Africa, be deferred to allow the state party to reconsider the scope of the nomination based on an augmented analysis of the area and of the impacts of the population on the landscape, refocus the justification for inscription and the criteria on the property rather than on the people, augment the comparative analysis, and reconsider the boundaries of the nominated property based on the above research and comparative analysis. And in ICOMOS view, a revised nomination would need to be visited by a mission to the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite the committee members to express the comments. Angola wishes to take the floor. Angola, the floor is yours.
Monsieur le Président, nous sommes devant un site qui présente des attributs significatifs concernant le peuple Khomani San, qui a développé depuis des siècles des connaissances, des savoirs, des pratiques traditionnelles exceptionnelles en ethnobotanique. Ce site mérite une analyse objective et une attention particulière des membres du comité présent à cette session. Nous avons analysé les dossiers d'inscription soumis par l'État partie. Nous avons considéré les informations additionnelles soumises par l'État partie en octobre 2016. Nous avons analysé et pris en compte les rapports d'évaluation du ICOMOS. Nous avons pris en compte la modification des erreurs factuelles soumises par l'État partie en réaction au rapport de l'ICOMOS. Enfin, nous avons analysé la réponse de l'ICOMOS face à la soumission de la notification des erreurs factuelles soumises par l'État partie. Nous avons noté avec un peu de regret les erreurs factuelles dans le rapport d'évaluation par l'ICOMOS telles que reflétées dans les documents WAC 1741.com IF 8B4. Cependant, nous reconnaissons l'acceptation par l'ICOMOS de ces points soulevés par l'État partie au titre des erreurs factuelles. D'ailleurs, c'est avec satisfaction que nous avons appris qu'il y a eu des concertations ici même à Cracovie entre l'État partie et l'ICOMOS, démarche que nous encourageons vivement. Toutefois, ce que nous aimerions souligner est le fait que l'ICOMOS a peut-être mal interprété ce que l'État partie proposait pour inscription, c'est-à-dire le paysage culturel de Khomani 100 et non le paysage général des 100. Ce qui a impacté parfois négativement la justification de la valeur universelle exceptionnelle. Par conséquent, avec l'acceptation de certaines erreurs fondamentales factuelles par l'ICOMOS, ma délégation juge que la VUE est justifiée. Par conséquent, nous demandons que la présente session du comité inscrive les paysages culturels de Khomani comme bien du patrimoine mondial. À la suite d'une analyse minutieuse de toutes les informations disponibles, nous félicitons l'État partie pour sa contribution dans la préservation de cet important patrimoine. Cependant, les critères cités, à notre point de vue, est que le critère 4 n'est pas totalement justifié. Nous pensons donc que le bien de l'État partie pourrait être inscrit sur la base des critères 3, 5 et 6. Parce que le critère 3 est justifié à travers la description de la persistance de la culture Khomani dans le bien proposé au cours de plusieurs millénaires, en dépit d'interruptions diverses qui n'ont pas pu effacer l'existence de la culture jusqu'à nos jours. Des informations issues des recherches sur des aspects comme l'ethnobotanique ont été soumises avec la proposition d'inscription et de notre point de vue, l'information fournie est suffisante pour distinguer l'usage paysager de Khomani. Critère 5, ce critère a été justifié par la description de plusieurs attributs qui représentent comment le Khomani a survécu dans un environnement hostile et laissé des évidences de leur exploitation du paysage afin d'assurer leur survie au fil des années. Et finalement, le critère 6, ce critère est justifié sur la base de la documentation de la culture Khomani, les savoirs traditionnels, l'ethnobotanique qui démontrent la richesse de la connaissance du VEL encore en usage pour faire face aux conditions difficiles. Par conséquent, nous recommandons fortement à cette session du comité d'inscrire les sites sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Merci. Now the United Republic of Tanzania. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Khomani property is another important type of site that this committee has to consider. When you walk into or visiting any cultural property, the values can clearly be observed or experienced or celebrated in various ways. There are values that you can clearly see. There are values that you can only experience by feeling. But there are values that you can only get by being informed, and there are values that you can get by reading or by participating. Our nominations, which is present to us, because of the design of the convention, in most cases are demonstrated to the evaluators by the art of writing and the art of expression through reading or listening. Chair, our short experience for most of those who have not chance to visit these sites are convinced of the existing or standing universal value through the power of art of writing or expression with the bit of visual presentation. It has been demonstrated in the committee sessions that certain criteria is not demonstrated or is not justified. The justification needed in some cases is the question of power of the wording and the presenting the same facts in a different way. We have no complaint about it. It is a reality that we have to live with. However, we should be asking ourselves, who has the copyright of this art of power of representation, art of writing, or art of expression? Initially, the nominations of years were very small in terms of required facts and in terms of presentation styles. Today, we experience style modified to the disadvantage of some of the regions, but though very, very useful. The issue of outstanding investment value, the opinion of Tanzania delegation should not be so difficult to identify for any person visiting a site. It should be vividly clear. The challenges that we get in this committee when considering a property is basically the demonstration of the experts from his or her experience in this field. But we are also seeing in some cases where third parties feel that justice is not made when a site is not described. Chair, this is an area which seems grey to our delegation, and the wish to sympathize with the evaluators on one side and the third parties on the other hand. Chair, ICOMOS has experts all over the world. ICOMOS has also national experts committee in some countries or regions. It is important to help third parties, not as advisors to the Heritage Committee only, but also as advisors to the state parties from the beginning, so that state parties do not have to labor too much and using their meager resources for something that had no end value. Chair, in the case of Khomani, we experienced a matter of difficulties in the understanding of the nomination dossier. We read a number of issues that were posed by the advisory body because they were not clearly demonstrated through the art of writing. Chair, we read the clarifications by the third party to the advisory bodies, and we clearly see consensus on a lot of areas after clarifications as to was echoed by Angola and quoting the document. And the dossier seems to have justifications now. Chair, with these words, with whether eloquently presented or not, hopefully some would have understood me and others not. We, Tanzania delegation, supported the draft decision presented by the distinguished delegation of Angola and is supported by Burkina Faso, is supported by the, I'm sorry about this. The draft decision presented by the distinguished delegation of Angola and with the understanding that the advisory body has the same understanding for the document that was uploaded with 8B4. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, Zimbabwe. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairperson. Zimbabwe supports the draft, the amended draft recommendation presented by Angola. The delegation shares the views as expressed by Angola that the property deserves inscription. We are also want to repeat the eloquent submission made by the distinguished delegate from Tanzania regarding this site. We are concerned that there were many factual errors which may have led to misunderstanding between the state party and the advisory body. The nomination clearly states that it is not about the San people, but about the unique cultural landscape that is shared by the Khomani. The Khomani are themselves a unique community that is part of the broader San, whose interaction with the nominated property has left imprinted features that give evidence to the survival of the Khomani through the exploration of the harsh conditions of landscape. A comparison with the sites in Botswana on the tentative list could be one of the recommendations that the state party could undertake after inscription. We do not think that we should hold inscription until the state party has carried out studies in other countries. This is not yet a serial nomination. The state party, in Zimbabwe's view, has satisfactorily defined the conditions of the integrity and authenticity and has done so without equivocation. The nomination of this property will certainly not be a lifeless museum edifice as shown in the manifest actions of the Khomani having regained the cultural rights of the land. It is regrettable that the maps that testify the property's attributes of authenticity were missed by the advisory body in the first instance, but we are happy to, pleased to understand that they finally did understand these maps. In light of these clarifications, we support the draft, the revised draft recommendation for inscription which has been presented by Angola. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, Burkina Faso, Excellency, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ma délégation fait sienne les positions qui viennent d'être exprimées par l'Angola, la Tanzanie et Zimbabwe sur les recommandations et qui sont en faveur de l'inscription du site à cette session. En ce qui concerne les problèmes soulevés par ICOMOS relativement à l'analyse comparative, nous accueillons favorablement les remarques qui sont faites. Toutefois, nous sommes réservés sur l'option selon laquelle, sans éléments comparatifs additionnels, le paysage culturel de Khomani ne peut pas être considéré comme exceptionnel. ICOMOS semble se focaliser sur le fait qu'il n'existe plus certaines choses comme la langue san. Pour nous, il ne s'agit pas de considérer Khomani comme un ensemble de groupes général san. Monsieur le Président, il nous semble pourtant que l'analyse comparative telle que présentée par l'État partie est bien suffisante pour que le comité soit convaincu de l'unique valeur du paysage culturel de Khomani dans son contexte géographique et historique. Notre conviction se fonde également sur les différents facteurs et attributs qui ont une signification particulière, telle qu'indiquée dans le dossier soumis par l'Afrique du Sud. Khomani représente une partie unique du cercle des cultures san qui ont été développées de façon unique à des périodes données de l'histoire. De ce qui précède donc, nous ne considérons pas qu'il y ait besoin de comparaison additionnelle de ce paysage unique susceptible de prouver son caractère non exceptionnel. En conséquence, nous soutenons l'inscription du bien durant cette session du comité. Je vous remercie.
Merci. Now the floor goes to Finland. Finland, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Finland commends the State Party for the work that has been put into the nomination of the Khomani cultural landscape. The nominated property is a vast landscape including landmarks of San history, migration, livelihoods, memory and resources. In our opinion, this nomination would benefit from some additional time that can only be provided by a deferral to strengthen the comparative analysis, justification of outstanding universal value, and to straighten out the question marks when it comes to the integrity and authenticity of the site. We have been discussing with the State Party. According to their opinion, ICOMOS might have misunderstood the concept and the difference between the San people and the Khomani San people. That is why we would like to hear the view of ICOMOS on that specific issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Croatia. Croatia, the floor is yours.
Well, after hearing everybody, Croatia fully supports the amendment presented by Angola and endorsed by Zimbabwe, Burkina Faso and Tanzania. Having heard the additional argumentation formulated through the factual errors and acknowledged by ICOMOS, it seems that there has been some misunderstandings in the evaluation process. Furthermore, we have the need to stress that our understanding of the universal values are much depending on educational geographical points of view, on cultural backgrounds, sometimes really leading to misunderstandings. So we are convinced that this nomination deserves inscription. Therefore, we strongly support the inscription of Khomani cultural landscape to the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the floor goes to Turkey. Excellency, the floor is yours, Madam. Thank you.
Thank you. In recent years, we are observing an increase in the nomination of cultural landscapes. This is a category we know that it's very difficult to nominate, evaluate, and protect, especially in exceptional cases like the Khomani cultural landscape nomination by the Republic of South Africa. This associative landscape is among those sites that are related to human evolution through interaction with the Earth in the spirit of UNESCO's now closed HADS thematic program. And we learned from the nomination file that ethnographic research since the 19th century has documented the Khomani culture through traditions transmitted from generation to generation for the longest period of some 100,000 years in human history. About associations with landscape elements such as specific trees between the dunes or ancestral graves, herbal medicine, and beliefs in the healing and harmonizing powers embedded in this very landscape. A limited visibility of the traces left by this millennia-long coexistence of the Khomani with this fragile dune landscape that is very difficult to inhabit apparently renders assessment of the nomination difficult, especially from a more familiar architectural perspective of cultural heritage instead of a more anthropocentric one that takes into consideration tangible and intangible heritage values together. We are making this very assessment in a period when the Khomani are revitalizing the delicate associations with their ancestral land that now belongs to them again, though legally defined and protected as Kalahari Gamsbok National Park. We believe that the inscription of the landscape on the World Heritage List would ensure longevity of the Khomani culture in association with this cultural landscape and contribute in an equitable representation of natural, cultural, and intangible diversity since the very origins of human life on Earth. Turkey, therefore, supports the amended decision of inscribing the property on the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the floor goes to Jamaica. Jamaica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Jamaica, having reviewed the file associated with the Khomani cultural landscape, notes some significant areas where clarifications were received in the factual errors report, many of which have been acknowledged by ICOMOS. The nomination file speaks to the unique traditions of the Khomani San people of South Africa and their land use over centuries until today. The clarifications have led to an understanding that the Khomani San people are connected spiritually and traditionally with the Kalahari Gamsbok National Park in South Africa, which is a part of the vast national park straddling Botswana and South Africa. It is our opinion that the factual errors as acknowledged by ICOMOS and the information provided by the state party has given far more clarity and has demonstrated the OUV of the property. Jamaica therefore supports the Khomani cultural landscape inscription under criteria 3, 5, and 6 as indicated in the amended draft decision and commends the state party for its hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the floor goes to Cuba.
Gracias, señor presidente. Cuba también tiene la apreciación que desafortunadamente no se pudieron valorar a profundidad todos los valores que están presentes en este sitio y de los cuales muchas delegaciones pues han puesto de manifiesto en sus intervenciones. En tal sentido, apoyamos la inscripción del sitio y nos gustaría, por supuesto, que evaluar en la propuesta de Angola la declaración de valor universal que lo fundamente. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Now Tunisia. The floor goes to Tunisia.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Tel que le dossier se présente, eh bien, le bien renferme la communauté qui a des racines très profondes dans l'histoire de l'humanité et parfaitement imbriquée dans son paysage dunaire et biologique tout au long de son histoire, développant ainsi une technologie et un mode de vie qui lui ont permis d'être pérennes. En cela, la culture de ce peuple est unique, un peuple très attaché à sa terre et à sa culture, en pleine harmonie avec l'ensemble de son paysage naturel dans sa double dimension biologique et botanique. Quant à l'intégrité du bien, elle se révèle selon nous justement à travers son étendue, qui se justifie pleinement et qui ne doit pas du tout la fragiliser. L'authenticité, enfin, se vérifie au travers de ses traditions et de sa mémoire, la mémoire de ce peuple qu'il véhicule encore et cherche à la vivifier pour les passer aux générations futures, au point qu'ils se font appeler les traditionnalistes. Pour toutes ces raisons, et compte tenu des erreurs factuelles de l'ICOMOS relevées par l'État partie, nous soutenons la proposition très appuyée de l'Angola de l'inscription suivant les critères 3, 5 et 6. Merci.
Thank you. Now, Portugal. Portugal, the floor goes to you. Excellency.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I listened very carefully to what has been said by a number of delegations. I think each of them brought a very useful contribution to this debate, and namely Angola, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. But I'm slightly lost in this process because some things for me are clear, like that this is not a serial nomination, that perhaps the advisory body has missed, besides other things, the sense of the main thrust of the nomination, and that there have been some errors, some factual errors that have been acknowledged. So I think that for us all to have a very, very clear picture of this issue, I would, in line with what was said by my distinguished colleague from Zimbabwe, I would like to hear ICOMOS address the discrepancies that were pointed out and the reaction of the state party on them. And also for you, Mr. President, to ask the state party if to share with us her vision at this stage and her willingness to meet some of the requests that have been put forward by the advisory bodies, if the case is such. I thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador. Vietnam. Now the floor goes to Vietnam.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. After reviewed ICOMOS evaluation report and the factual errors submitted by state party, and having listened to the previous speaker, Vietnam takes note the issues raised by ICOMOS concerning the condition of integrity and authenticity of the property. However, we believe that this site reflects the hunting and gathering way of life practiced by the ancestor of all human beings, and we support the decision amended by Angola. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now, Kuwait. The floor is yours, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. We commend the State Party of South Africa on the framework adopted for the protection and management of the property that integrates local resources, spatial planning and control, as well as safeguarding intangible cultural heritage in an interesting model of management. Having heard the opinions of other distinguished committee members and the presentation of ICOMOS and the concerns expressed, we believe that the inscription on the World Heritage List would provide all stakeholders involved the motivation to continue their efforts in safeguarding their cultural landscape. We acknowledge the universal value of the site being the place of ancestors of the entire human race, and we support the amendment made by Angola to inscribe the site based on criteria 3, 5, and 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Azerbaijan. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We also would like to support the delegation of Angola, the amendment, and we think the Khomani cultural landscape could be inscribed on the criteria 3, 5, 6, and also we agree with distinguished delegation of Zimbabwe that the some points and issues which mentioned in the ICOMOS report could be discussed with the neighbors country after the inscription. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now, Philippines.
Thank
Excellency, the
Thank
floor
you,
is
Mr.
yours.
Chair. We have listened clearly to the debate. We also noted a number of factual errors and clarifications were agreed between the state party and ICOMOS. Nevertheless, there remains a discrepancy in interpretation between ICOMOS and the committee members, especially with respect to the geographic expanse of the nomination. We recognize the importance of the Khomani cultural landscape in association with the unique culture of the Khomani and related Sound people dating back to the Stone Age. We hope we can find a healthy balance between the will of this committee and the expert analysis, just like our Portuguese colleague, perhaps narrowing the applicable criteria and inviting the state party to address some outstanding issues may be the way forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you for all your comments and questions. I understand that they should be now answered by ICOMOS. And after that, I'm going to give the floor to the distinguished state party. ICOMOS, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are mainly comments and consideration by distinguished delegates that have spoken. There are at least 2 points that ICOMOS considers important to clarify also upon request by the distinguished delegate of Finland, Portugal, and the Philippines, if I'm not mistaken. First of all, concerning the factual error letters, indeed, ICOMOS acknowledged a few factual errors, a number of clarifications, but the main preoccupation of ICOMOS remains, and these concern particularly the level of documentation and of information that has been provided on the cultural aspects that would support this inscription. Considerations about the wording of the criteria might be seen as details, but in some cases also reflect how the property is understood and would influence as well its management in the future. Concerning the distinction between the Khomani San and the San, in this regard, ICOMOS would like to invite the committee to be cautious in the sense that up to when we distinguish between the Khomani San and the other San group people, it might be quite problematic in that regard. And in this sense, ICOMOS has asked further work to the state party in order to better clarify what are the distinctions of the relationship between the people and the landscape, which were not quite highlighted in the nomination dossier, neither in the additional information that have been provided. Concerning the maps, we actually had a meeting with the state party, but the only point on which we found a common agreement concerned the role of the National Heritage Resource Act that in fact provide effective protection at this stage. But with regard to the quality and depth of the mapping and documentation that has been provided by the state party, what ICOMOS has received is considered far from sufficient at this stage. So all these elements, including the wording of the criteria and the evidence supported, as regrettably, but obliged ICOMOS to suggest a deferral. Also considering that this area is in a boundary area, we have seen that the current boundary between states are quite kind of artificial boundary. So in that regard, the way in which the population spread millennia ago and continue to spread until these boundaries have been set up might need some consideration also in terms of how to determine effective boundary for reflection of this human and natural environment interaction. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope I have clarified the points that have been raised by the distinguished delegates that have called for ICOMOS explanations.
Thank you, Madam. Let's hope. But anyway, now I am giving the floor to the state party. South Africa, you have the floor.
Chairperson and honorable committee members, this nomination of the Khomani San cultural landscape has been developed over a long, painstaking process which involved multiple stakeholders. The main drivers of the nomination itself, in terms of the process, are the Khomani Sen themselves, who work tirelessly to ensure that members of their community, young and old, contribute to a solid nomination that accurately reflects their relationship with the hard conditions of the landscape, as it has been said earlier. We have ensured, as a state party, that we comply with the prescribed and supporting processes for the World Heritage nomination. We submitted the nomination for completeness check, where after valuable inputs were received from the World Heritage Center, we were able to submit the final dossier, which is the subject of this session. Subsequent to the evaluation mission, where members of the Khomani community actively participated, South Africa submitted additional information. The involvement of the Khomani community in this process presented many opportunities for capacity building in various aspects necessary for the management of the cultural landscape. We have to clarify it here, as it was indicated earlier, or a question was posed. Khomani is a unique group that is only found in South Africa. It's a subgroup of the broader Sen community. This nomination dossier is about the Khomani Sen unique group in South Africa. Through his evaluation of the dossier, ICOMOS misunderstood some of the issues, and those issues were clarified, hence the document that was referred to, InfDoc 8B4, which shows that ICOMOS acknowledged those misunderstandings and acknowledged the clarifications that were provided. So the nomination of this important cultural landscape contributes a very significant cultural heritage of this rich and diverse World Heritage list. I will ask just for some few seconds the technical team to clarify 2 or 3 issues that were raised just now.
Chairperson, we will just add on the issue of maps, which also have to do with the issue of the integrity and the authenticity. The fact that this evaluation by ICOMOS was looking at the sun, who their spread as the sun goes beyond the nominated property, has led to a serious confusion, and therefore will put to question the issue of integrity and authenticity if you approached the dossier from that element of looking at the sun rather than limiting it to the Khomani sun. We also want to add that as much as we appreciate the recommendation to do further comparative analysis with sites that are on the tentative list, there is in the dossier comparative analysis with sites that are already on the World Heritage list, and we feel that that comparative analysis, just looking at only those comparators, should give this committee sufficient information to deal with this dossier and inscribe in this meeting. So as the state party, we really feel that whatever additional information as relating to further research on cultural heritage features, not to say that those are not demonstrated, they are there, they are provided and indicated in the maps that are available during this session, which were given with the nomination dossier and again submitted as further information. That information is there, and research is ongoing within the state party, and it can always be beefed up. It's an ongoing process. So we would appeal to the session to consider inscribing this property, and we will take recommendations as recommendations that we can implement later. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other interventions? I do see Portugal. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. No, very briefly, just to say that after having heard ICOMOS and having heard the State Party, Portugal joins all the other delegations that have proposed the inscription of this property. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. So, Mr. Rapporteur, have you received any amendments on the draft decision proposed? You did?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We have received an amendment from distinguished delegate of Angola. We have a draft amendment on our screen there. The first draft decision had 4 paragraphs. Now we have reminded with only 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph has not been altered. The second one has modified. Now is stated by inscribes the Khomani cultural landscape South Africa on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 2, 5, and 6. The second paragraph, A, has been deleted, B, deleted, C, deleted, D, deleted. Third paragraph also has been deleted. The fourth one has been deleted, and there's a new paragraph which has been added. It reads, takes note on the following provision, statement of standing universal value. Allow me, Mr. Chairman, not to read all of those proposals. So that was has been proposed by a distinguished delegate of Angola. Thank you.
Thank you. Now Peru wishes to take the floor. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Mi delegación pidió la palabra antes que se ponga en consideración el proyecto de decisión y lo hizo en último lugar de todas las delegaciones que han intervenido por considerar que el expediente y el tratamiento de esta nominación presentaba elementos complejos y algunas situaciones que tenían que esclarecerse, inclusive errores factuales en la apreciación del expediente. Y por eso era muy importante poder escuchar al Estado parte, así como las respuestas de ICOMOS a las consultas que se le hicieron. Y luego de ello, la delegación del Perú lo que desea sencillamente es expresar su respaldo pleno a las enmiendas presentadas por Angola y adelantar su criterio de aprobación. Gracias, señor presidente.
Gracias. Now Finland. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. This is just to clarify whether we are introducing new criteria here. In the English version, it says criterion 2, and in the French, criterion 3. And the State Party has put forward criterion 3, so I believe there is a mistake in the English version of the text. Thank you.
It is. Thank you very much, Finland. So, are we ready? I'm convinced that we are ready, which means that para 1 is adopted, para 2 is adopted as amended, Finland wishes to take the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to take the floor on para 3. I hope we are there now.
So the floor is yours.
Yes,
we are just entering para 3. So
yes.
You are the first.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. I have a problem with criterion 3 in this case. If nominating a site according to the criterion 3, the site has to bear, I quote, bear a unique or at least exceptional testimony to a cultural tradition or to a civilization which is living or which has disappeared, quote. And to our understanding, the archaeological evidence of Sun's presence within this property is not discussed in the nomination dossier. We would also like to hear ICOMOS' view on criterion 3 in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Finland. So the floor goes to ICOMOS. ICOMOS, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, indeed, the distinguished delegate of Finland has highlighted an aspect that has been discussed in length in ICOMOS panel. It's a matter of evidence that is not discussed, but also in terms of interchanges and modifications that have occurred that have impacted on the possibility really to support this criterion as it should in its wording. Therefore, that is why ICOMOS has considered that the property might not really have the potential to satisfy criterion 3, rather to focus more on criterion 5, which looks at the land use, and criterion 6 because ICOMOS has understood the importance associative dimension of this landscape. So I think you have pointed out a right concern that ICOMOS has been discussing, and so why the different wording for this criterion is not at this stage, but it's rather non-demonstrated. So we have this slight distinction to indicate what could be the real potential of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Finland, would you like to respond? Are you satisfied with this clarification or not?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And when we have heard the clarification, we would, of course, suggest the deletion of criterion 3 from the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. So we shall go back to para 2. Portugal wishes to take the floor. Excellency. Shall we go back to para 2 for a while, please? Yes, and Portugal has the floor.
Yes, Mr. President, in order not to lose too much time with this, and I understand the rationale behind the Finnish suggestion, which as usual makes a lot of sense, I would suggest that you ask the Angola, who has proposed this alteration, if she would agree with the elimination of paragraph 3, of criteria 3. Thank you.
No doubt about that. Thank you. It was my intention to ask kindly Angola to take the floor and to help us.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, nous sommes d'accord qu'on supprime le critère 3. Merci.
Merci. Thank you. It means that we shall be quite consequent following this decision as the next paragraph is concerned. So let me please adopt again, or re-adopt, if I may say so, para 2 adopted as amended now. And now we can move on to para 3, which is a very long story. And the only intervention which is now needed, as I understand, is the problem of criterion 3, which should be simply deleted. Let's have a look at this very long paragraph up to the end, up to the victorious end, as I understand, adopted as amended, which means that now I have a pleasure and privilege to declare decision 41.8b.12 adopted as amended. Let me congratulate South Africa on behalf of the entire committee for the inscription on the World Heritage List. And South Africa, the floor is yours. 2 minutes.
Your Excellency, Chairperson of the World Heritage Committee, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you and the government of Poland for the great hospitality extended to all delegations attending this 41st session of the World Heritage Committee. I would also like to thank the World Heritage Committee for allowing the State Party of South Africa to address the meeting on this occasion of the inscription of Khomani cultural landscape. It is my honor, Chairperson, to start by congratulating the governments of Angola and Eritrea for their very first nomination on the World Heritage List. South Africa welcomes the inscription of this important and unique site, adding to the diversity of sites in our country. We would also like to thank the Khomani community for their initiative, patience, dedication, and the role throughout the process of the nomination of this site. Their continued efforts to protect and nurture their heritage is acknowledged. This inscription of this property marks a very noteworthy moment for the Khomani community, which has survived the extreme conditions of the desert landscape despite their significant low numbers over a very long period of time. While South Africa is delighted to add more to the World Heritage Sites on our portfolio of protected areas, we acknowledge the consequent responsibility and commit to ensure the integrity and outstanding universal value is not only sustained but also strengthened. I would also want to acknowledge that the participation of the communities as the custodians of the World Heritage is a primary factor, and so is ensuring that they benefit from the World Heritage property in many ways, including through capacity building and their contribution to economic development of the area. We have learned a lot from the committee, other properties including our own, the advisory bodies and the World Heritage Center, and will continue to ensure that those lessons are not in vain. I assure you on behalf of the State Party that we'll spare no effort in ensuring that these World Heritage properties that we will continue to nominate are managed in accordance with the highest standards consistent with the provisions of the World Heritage Convention. I now hand over to the representative from the Khomani communities, Mr. Dirk Pinar.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chairperson of the World Heritage Committee, my name is Dirk Pinar, and I am a member of the Khomani San community in the Kalahari, which cultural landscape has just been inscribed. Now, on behalf of our community, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, the World Heritage Committee, our South African delegation, and all other state parties and stakeholders who ensured the inscription of the Khomani cultural landscape that was initiated by our community. The decision that was taken today marks a long-awaited historical moment for us, the Khomani San, and all other San and Bushman communities. As one of the most researched and documented cultures in the world, it was finally acknowledged today for its universal value and importance. This listing will thus provide a foundation for us as the Khomani to continue to preserve, protect, and practice our ancient culture and traditions with minimum threat of extinction within the current society. We promise that we will never stop to respect and nurture all ecosystem services rules embedded within our culture and transferred from generation to generation to ensure that we will be able to provide not only for our own, but for all other future generations. Conservation for us is not a planned action or a buzzword to use to impress when needed. It is neither a choice but a way of life which is instilled with all of us son from a very tender age. Nature and culture in the atmosphere is never distinguished in the ecosystem, but is considered as part of humanity, as part of man within our culture. We fully welcome the inclusion of the site and I would also like to use this opportunity to thank all other stakeholders which worked with us, the Khomani San, to make this possible, which include NGOs, researchers, as well as individuals, including BMZ Germany, Peacebucks Foundation, that made it possible for us to get this done. And lastly but not leastly, I would love to thank my community back in the Kalahari, but I would also like to convey a very special thanks to all the elderly that already died in the process to be able to be globally acknowledged for the universal value of our culture. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, South Africa, and once again, congratulations. And now I'm giving the floor to Dr. Mehmet Rezla. It will be a very important information about the colors of our session.
I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, whether this is a very important information, but some of you wondered why we have green colors of the amendments, because we were running out of the blue color. So it has no, it has no further implication unless you want to interpret it as some hope in the room. Thank you.
It is really, I can assure you, no any trial of any further political provocation. But anyway, Lebanon.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Yes, Mr. President. Maybe we should, from now on, adopt the green color, because this is environment and protection of environment, etc., etc. Thank you.
I'm not taking the liberty to adopt it right now, but anyway, we shall think about that in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, we can move on to item 41.8b.13 now. It is draft decision on Jordan, Asphalt Eclectic Architecture, 1865-1925, Origins and Evolution of an Architectural Language in the Levant. I now invite ICOMOS to present the nomination of the Asphalt Eclectic Architecture, but before I give the floor to the Secretariat, Mr. Balsamo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We received a factual error notification concerning the evaluation of this nomination, and is to be found on page 95 of the English version of document INF8 before, and on page 111 of the French version of the same document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And now the floor goes to ICOMOS. ICOMOS, the floor is yours. I have just a very technical request, if I may, repeating again and again that the best space for congratulations and for real joy is outside this very place, this very hall. Thank you. Madam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. This is the presentation of the ICOMOS evaluation of Asphalt Eclectic Architecture, 1865 to 1925, Origins and Evolution of an Architectural Language in the Levant from Jordan. As detailed in the evaluation report, this is a deferred nomination. The first nomination dossier for the Old City of Asphalt was examined by the Bureau of the World Heritage Committee in 1994, and the adopted decision is shown on the slide. The primary issue identified by the Bureau at that time was the need for appropriate protective measures to be implemented, although the present nomination differs in several key respects. Asphalt developed in the sphere of influence of Damascus during the last 50 years of the Ottoman Empire. Development of the town and evolution of building forms after 1860 was rapid, and the nominated buildings are presented as historical markers of political, social, economic, and cultural events. The eclectic qualities put forward by the State Party are an interplay between indigenous architectural traditions, materials, and styles, along with those that spread throughout the Levant during this period from elsewhere. Asphalt is presented as a serial nomination of 8 components that include 22 of the best preserved buildings, built in distinctive yellow stone on the slopes of the city. The old town lies between a series of hills. The 8 components vary in size, shown in red on this map, and are all enclosed by a single buffer zone, shown in blue. Between 1865 and 1925, Transjordan became a rich region when a group of merchants coming from Nablus, Syria, and Egypt amassed fortunes from trade, banking, and farming. This new middle class invested in family mansions and attracted skilled craftsmen to As-Salt, changing its morphology as it grew from a rural settlement to a thriving city. As-Salt also benefited from its position on the Syrian pilgrimage route to Mecca and on the Hijaz Railway from Damascus to Medina, which opened in 1908. This prosperity also brought Europeans into the region, but the city declined after the newly founded Emirate of Transjordan moved its capital to Amman. The nomination describes the innovation and creativity of the skilled stonemasons, builders, and other Palestinian craftsmen responsible for the eclectic but homogeneous qualities of the nominated buildings and their skillful adaptation to the hilly topography and narrow streets. The nominated buildings include residences of different sizes, shops, the first Catholic church in Jordan, designed by French missionaries, an Anglican church complex, and several mosques, such as the small mosque with its well-known minaret, the oldest in the town and constructed by local builders. The ICOMOS World Heritage Panel concluded that while historical and descriptive information was provided, the comparative analysis did not clarify what is particularly special about the architecture of As-Salt or how it can be considered exceptional within its geocultural context. ICOMOS considers that the authenticity of the nominated property is demonstrated as far as the architectural styles, forms, ornamentation and materials are concerned. However, the ICOMOS World Heritage Panel considered that the qualifying conditions of authenticity and integrity are both vulnerable due to the development pressures and the fragmentation of the components within the town. While the architecture of As-Salt can be traced historically and culturally, its importance in demonstrating interchanges that could make it a specific case in the Levant has not been established, as is required for Criterion 2. The period in question was a brief one, but important for the region. However, ICOMOS did not accept that the architecture of As-Salt can itself be considered as a cultural tradition, which is the focus of Criterion 3. Nor can it stand on its own to represent this period and the processes of transformation of the Levant. Accordingly, the World Heritage Panel found that neither of the proposed criteria, 2 or 3, have been justified. ICOMOS considers that the main pressures for the nominated property are population growth, infrastructure and urban developments, and seismic risk. The boundaries and buffer zones are appropriate, and the state of conservation and legal protection are adequate. The management system is also considered adequate, although it could be strengthened by improved cooperation between relevant municipal and national authorities. ICOMOS considers that the nominated buildings and areas of As-Salt are distinctive and demonstrate an association with the city's transformation at the turn of the 19th to the 20th centuries, an important period of change for the region. The nominated parts of the town have clear importance at the national level. However, the ICOMOS World Heritage Panel considered that a compelling justification for outstanding universal value has not been presented, and therefore recommends that the nomination of As-Salt's eclectic architecture should be not inscribed on the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, ICOMOS, for your presentation. And now, traditionally, I would like to invite the committee members to express their comments, and Portugal is the first. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Allow me to congratulate the Jordanian authorities for the careful and consistent preparation of this nomination, which had initially been presented to the committee back in 1994, as we were kindly reminded by ICOMOS, whom I thank for a very thorough presentation, although my conclusion will be a different one. My congratulations to Jordan are twofold. First, we believe that this nomination deserves careful attention for its quality, uniqueness, and original hybrid nature. For these reasons, we co-sponsor the revised draft decision which has been presented. My second reason to congratulate Jordan arises from the fact that, notwithstanding their conviction concerning the relevance of this candidature, Jordan has decided to ask today only for its deferral, thus allowing more time to further consolidate this dossier and articulate its different components in a consistent way. I think this is an exemplary attitude that should be commended. Mr. President, asphalt is in fact a unique property for different reasons, and its origin and history are worth studying. The originality of asphalt lies on an indigenous contemporary architectural language based on ancient geometry. It is true that there are no architectural elements that relate to Art Nouveau, popular then among the European elites, or the Gothic or neoclassical revival widespread in Europe and in European colonies. But this is not the issue, quite on the contrary. It is obvious that the wealthy people that built the new town ordered a specific urban drawing, a pragmatic and original one, as well as buildings adapted to their business needs and the conviviality of different social and cultural strata in the same urban space. So the absence of the influence of European aesthetical movements such as Art Nouveau do not diminish the exceptional value of this property. In fact, it gives it increased relevance and significance. Asphalt contributes, in fact, to an innovative expression concerning the building of new towns by indigenous masters. These masters have married in a harmonious way geometrical precision and the proportions of ancient architecture with modern language and materials. It is indeed eclectic in the best sense of the word. Mr. President, to conclude, we congratulate again Jordan for her commitment to work further this dossier. We are sure of the integrity and authenticity of the property, and we believe, as suggested in the revised draft decision that, as I said in the beginning, Portugal has co-sponsored, that this nomination should be deferred. And I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And now the floor goes to Lebanon. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the debate was opened by our distinguished delegate from Portugal, we would like to list 2 points to lead the discussion towards the proposal of amended decision. The first one, ICOMOS considered this dossier as a deferred nomination while Jordan submitted a new tentative list form in 2015. Therefore, it should be considered as a new nomination, attributing to it a new reference number. Second, the main point of criticism raised by ICOMOS regarding the comparative analysis, the integrity, as well as the criteria which have been chosen and how they have been demonstrated, hence the justification of OUV, seem to be at least partially correlated with the confusion with the 1994 nomination process. In the light of the above, we propose, as was said by Portugal, to defer the nomination of Asphalt Eclectic Architecture as per the amendment we submitted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, Turkey. Turkey has the floor, Excellency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, we commend the efforts of Jordan in improving the protection of the property, which was the main reason, after all, behind the deferral in 1994, and for their effort also for the preparation of the nomination file. I would also like to thank ICOMOS for an indeed extensive and lucid briefing on this dossier, and I would like to add my support to what has just been eloquently stated by most distinguished Lebanese colleague. As SALT, as some other cities, had benefited from its position on the pilgrimage and trade routes and developed economically and demographically until the opening of the Suez Channel in 1869 and subsequently with the opening of the Hijaz Railway in 1908. The dossier emphasizes 2 main arguments for outstanding universal value. One is the transformation of a rural settlement to a city, and the other is the emergence and evolution of a spatial architecture. We agree that the site demonstrates outstanding universal value. However, the dossier needs to be expanded further to put this real potential in a more wholesome way. This is what truly distinguishes it as SALT from others, needs to be deepened. For instance, a vernacular type of modernity is commonly used in literature to refer to the Ottoman experience of modernity in architecture and urbanization. As such, comparison with other Ottoman cities in the vicinity, former Ottoman cities, of course, in the vicinity, under a similar influence of modernization, will contribute to this justification very much. We consider that the outstanding universal value is there, integrity and authenticity is preserved, but the problem is related to the documentation, today's problem rather, is related to the documentation and further articulation of the city's uniqueness. We therefore recommend deferral on the nomination to the state party to reformulate certain aspects like the boundaries and the criteria to be based on the outcomes of the comparative analysis to be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Now, Kazakhstan. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Delegation of Kazakhstan fully recognizes the importance of the current nomination dossier and welcome following efforts to be implemented by the distinguished state party to include this without any doubt outstanding property in the nearest future in the World Heritage List. We're sure this exceptional property, after some modification of the nomination file, namely comparative analysis, boundary clarifications, elaboration on the definition of the OUV, will be considered as a World Heritage property. In this sense, the delegation of Kazakhstan, followed by amendment, supports deferral for the assault electric nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. And now the floor goes to Kuwait.
Thank you, Mr.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. We congratulate Jordan on this very important genre of built heritage presented in front of us today. This is a form of heritage that originated and evolved during the late Ottoman era, a period of high importance because it marks the birth of Jordan as a nation and a modern state. We join the previous distinguished speakers in supporting the proposal to defer the nomination of assault eclectic architecture, to give the state party more time to reflect on the proposed OUV and answer to other suggestions made by ICOMOS. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the Republic of Korea. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly, the Republic of Korea fully recognizes the significance and the cultural values that assault eclectic architecture demonstrate the modern architectural style from the late 19th century to the 20th century of the Ottoman Empire. We highly commend the endeavors of the State Party of Jordan to identify new values of the property from a new point of view. We respect the experts' opinion of ICOMOS in their evaluation, which concludes that there needs to be more evidence to support the justification of the property having eclectic characteristics to the standards of demonstrating the OUV. Although the OUV is not fully demonstrated at this stage, we'd like to strongly encourage the State Party of Jordan to continue their efforts. The significance of the eclectic architecture, especially within the Levant, and the meaning it has as an urban landscape should be explored more in depth. The process of assault evolving from a small rural settlement to a prominent urban city can be found in this property. The Republic of Korea would like to gladly add our voice to support the amended draft decision on this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Now the floor goes to Philippines. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This new nomination, as has been stated earlier, is totally different from the deferred nomination submitted by Jordan way back in 1994, which is for the city of Assault. The Philippines also wishes to commend ICOMOS for its extensive evaluation report However, such report is based on a totally different nomination, City of Assault, which Jordan did not revive and therefore is based on a different premise. The nomination under consideration is the eclectic architecture of Assault, new as now a serial nomination. The nominated serial properties are houses of the wealthy merchants from Nablus, Syria, and Egypt who built their fortunes on trade, banking, and farming, and as a result of their wealth, commissioned skilled craftsmen to build their family mansions. We understand that various influences and styles coming from outside influences brought by the wealthy merchants may have been exposed to Gothic, Greek, Roman influences during their travels as that time were adopted and merged with the indigenous ways used by the craftsmen working with the Yellowstones, resulting in a style of architecture that is rather unique. The Philippines supports the amendments submitted that recommend the deferral of this important nomination. We want to highly commend Jordan for its position to gain further time to consolidate and strengthen its nomination. We believe this positive attitude must be emulated by all states parties and greatly respected by our committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Excellency. Now Finland wishes to take the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. As pointed out by the distinguished Ambassador of Portugal, this nomination was deferred in 1994, then to enable the state party to put in place appropriate protective measures and to implement them. The state party has been able to do this, and we congratulate them for the achievement. Unfortunately, the nomination file cannot argue that the property has outstanding universal value at this point. It rather shows that the site has national and sub-regional value. The center of the city is fragmented, and therefore it has been put forward as a serial nomination, which in the end might not have been the best solution. However, in order to make it possible for the state party to try a different approach under the guidance of the advisory body, we can go along with the committee's consensus proposal on a deferral. We encourage the state party to enhance cooperation between the Ministry of Municipalities and Rural Affairs, the Higher City Planning of Jordan, and Assault Greater Municipality. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Finland. Now Indonesia. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. This property as Assault eclectic architecture was inserted to the tentative list by the state party in 2015 as a historical city, as been mentioned before. To our understanding, in the present nomination, the property is being nominated as an eclectic architecture. After carefully studying the documents, we take notes that ICOMOS has assessed the property as a city. Instead of eclectic architecture, it was recorded that as a historical city, the property was examined by the Bureau of the World Heritage Committee in 1994 with a deferral decision. Based on the assessment, we take note that ICOMOS considered the property has not met the OUV. However, we also take note that in the report, ICOMOS acknowledged that Assault has inherited a diverse legacy of styles, types of domestic buildings, construction techniques, stone masonry, and handicraft skills dating to different historical periods, together with more modern elements, such as the metal I-beam, saw timber, and industrialized styles. It signifies a cultural interchange within the Levant, Ottoman Empire, and European. Therefore, we view that the property reflects a mixed culture between an innovative European architecture and local materials and eclectic styles. It should be considered as a shared heritage of various nations in the Middle East and Europe, and as a result of an acculturation among nations. In the midst of the many contradictions of exist today, shared heritage, which shows coexistence in harmony, becomes so important that people can learn from it. We are of the view that this perspective needs to be emphasized and that the OUV might be justified. Concerning these matters, Indonesia would like to propose to give Jordan a chance to improve this nomination with the assistance of the advisory body, we are of the view that this nomination could be given a deferred status for an improvement in the future. We therefore support the amendment put forward by distinguished delegate Turkey and state parties. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Now the floor goes to Vietnam. Madame, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous apprécions le rapport d'évaluation de l'ICOMOS. Nous souhaitons féliciter la Jordanie pour ses efforts de conservation de ce bien et nous appuyons l'amendement différé de ce dossier et encourageons l'État partie de consolider ce dossier pour l'inscription à l'avenir. Je vous remercie.
Zimbabwe, Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairperson. Zimbabwe congratulates the State Party of Jordan for bringing this property before the committee. We also appreciate the comments made by the advisory body. In view of the comments by the advisory body, we note that the property in question has authenticity and potential OUV. We therefore accept that the State Party needs to conduct further work on the nomination with the assistance of the advisory bodies in the center. In particular, the work needs to be done in terms of redefinition of the criteria, modification of boundaries, and further refinement and demonstration of the OUV. In view of this, Zimbabwe supports the revised draft decision proposed by Turkey and other colleagues to defer the nomination to enable Jordan to work further on the dossier. We also commend the State Party of Jordan for taking this position. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Excellency. Now Tunisia, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. L'architecture éclectique d'Assalt est la synthèse d'échanges commerciaux et ethno-culturels multiples pendant l'ère ottomane. L'État parti, très bien conscient de sa valeur, lui a donné un grand intérêt. Cet intérêt se révèle à travers globalement un bon état de conservation des 22 maisons objets du bien, sauvegardant ainsi en gros son intégrité, mais aussi son authenticité, pour autant que l'on veuille bien considérer les formes architecturales, les styles, les éléments décoratifs et le matériau en tant que tels. Et nous sommes sûrs que l'État parti veillera dans le futur à en faire bon usage. Par conséquent, il n'y a pas lieu de s'inquiéter comme le laisse entendre l'ICOMOS de ce point de vue. En outre, l'État parti relève que, plutôt la Tunisie relève que les délimitations, la protection, la conservation et le suivi sont globalement appropriés, ce qui augure de très bonnes dispositions de l'État parti à approfondir certains volets, notamment l'analyse comparative et celui d'approfondir la VUE. Et là-dessus, on ne peut que faire confiance à l'État parti. C'est pour cette raison que la délégation tunisienne appuie la proposition de différer l'examen de son inscription. Je ne finis pas ma parole sans oublier de remercier et féliciter l'État parti pour l'effort et pour sa volonté de bien vouloir étoffer le dossier. Merci.
Merci. And now Cuba. The floor goes to Cuba.
Gracias, señor presidente. Quería subrayar dentro de este análisis el planteamiento realizado por el Líbano y soportado por otros Estados miembros del comité como Filipinas, Portugal, Finlandia e Indonesia, relativo a que estamos en presencia de una nueva nominación nacida a partir de la actualización de la lista indicativa. Tipológicamente, e incluso estamos en presencia de una serie, lo que en este momento estamos analizando. Y por supuesto queremos apoyar la propuesta de aplazar esta nominación. Gracias.
Thank you. Now Poland wishes to take the floor. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We would like to support amendments in the draft decision, because we recognize that it is an interesting example of architectural influences coming from different regions and cultures forming unique eclectic urban space. So while we observe a potential outstanding value of the site under condition of limitation of current developments, we would like to congratulate State Party for preparation of this nomination, but at the same time encourage to take into account recommendations of the advisory body, which should be implemented for its improvement. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The United Republic of Tanzania wishes to take the floor. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Excellency Chair. The United Republic of Tanzania supports the proposal to defer the nomination of the property. A deferral will enable the State Party to elaborate on the justification of the outstanding universal value, especially through the broadening of the comparative analysis in order to encompass other similar historic towns and heritage sites within the Ottoman sphere of influence. Further, we commend the efforts of the State Party towards plans initiated for the conservation and management of this heritage, as highlighted in the ECOMOS evaluation. In the light of the above, we support the proposal to defer the nomination of this property as proposed by Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you. Now Burkina Faso. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ma délégation voudrait également féliciter la Jordanie pour les efforts et le travail complémentaire qui a été mené pour la proposition d'inscription du site d'As al-Salt. Nous notons que le panel d'ICOMOS a considéré que les éléments manquent pour justifier les critères 2 et 3 permettant de reconnaître une valeur universelle du bien. Ma délégation pense que l'authenticité et l'intégrité du bien, bien que vulnérables, comme l'a indiqué ICOMOS, existent. Mais avec un peu plus de temps, certainement, l'État partie pourrait bénéficier de toute l'assistance requise pour améliorer le dossier. Et c'est dans cette approche d'amélioration que nous voulons soutenir la proposition d'amendement qui a été proposée par la Turquie pour différer l'inscription du bien. Je vous remercie.
Merci. Now, Croatia. Croatia, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chair, we are sure that the Old Salt eclectic architecture will be an additional value to the diversity of World Heritage when the additional and further work is to be done. We congratulate the State Party of Jordan for their excellent work and both the ICOMOS for their fruitful dialogue that will continue. We join the previous speakers in supporting the draft amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the floor goes to Azerbaijan. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to say thanks for ICOMOS hard work, and I would like to say sorry for you too, because sometimes we are not agree with you. This is a discussion, and we would like to support the state of party because, as they mentioned, the property could be evaluated not only from the architectural point of view and must be evaluated from artistic point of view too, because we are talking about the style of architecture. And we fully support the distinguished delegate of Portugal, and we agree with them that the site should be deferred, and fully support the amendment of the Turkey, and would like to mention that fully agree with the point that the criteria should be redefined again. Thanks for attention.
Thank you. And now Peru. The floor goes to Peru. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Creo que las diversas opiniones que se han dado respecto de la evaluación de ICOMOS y de las explicaciones dadas por el Estado parte, nos indican que estamos en una situación donde, por un lado, tenemos, creo, todas las delegaciones una coincidencia con la evaluación de ICOMOS, que es una coincidencia no solamente de carácter general, sino con aspectos muy específicos. De la evaluación de ICOMOS, lo que podemos sacar como conclusión es que efectivamente el valor universal excepcional del bien no se ha demostrado en el manejo del expediente, que hay que repensar los criterios 2 y 3 y que también desde la perspectiva de ICOMOS hay algunos problemas que resolver en relación a la autenticidad y a la integridad del bien. Creo que todos estamos de acuerdo con matices respecto a estas conclusiones de ICOMOS. Las diferencias están en la recomendación. Y mi impresión es que el comité se inclina de una manera muy clara y definida por aprobar la enmienda de tal manera que Jordania, siempre en cooperación y en colaboración con ICOMOS, pueda reelaborar el expediente, intentar una fundamentación sólida de ese potencial de valor universal que todos reconocemos en el bien, probablemente redefinir los criterios y hacer una fundamentación a partir de estudios más específicos respecto de la autenticidad y de la integridad del bien. Es en ese contexto que la delegación del Perú se suma a todas las delegaciones que me han antecedido en el uso de la palabra para respaldar el proyecto de enmienda presentado por Turquía y otros estados. Gracias, señor presidente.
Gracias. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Now, Jamaica. Jamaica wishes to take the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jamaica commends the State Party of Jordan for its efforts in presenting this nomination. We also commend the World Heritage Center and advisory body for the reports and recommendations. Although the WHC and ICOMOS recognize ASOL's national importance, the site as presented in the nomination is not regarded as meeting the requirements of outstanding universal value. Jamaica supports the amended draft decision with the understanding that the components added are adhered to in the shortest. These include refining the criteria in order to demonstrate what makes the architectural heritage important or exceptional among other historic cities, and modification of the boundaries of the property. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let me just say that nearly all the distinguished members of the committee took the floor as this item is concerned. It was a very long discussion, but I'm convinced that we have learned a lot and we are enriched. Now the floor goes to ICOMOS. ICOMOS, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very brief reaction on a couple of points. Firstly, to thank all the World Heritage Committee members who spoke on this issue and made many useful points that will be very, very informative as we move forward with this important case, and also to note the very useful and serious exchanges we were able to have here in Krakow with the Jordanian delegation, which we really thank them for. I wanted to reassure the committee that ICOMOS is quite capable of shifting its orientation between the focus on a historic city center or settlement or the eclectic architectural arguments put forward, and in fact did try to look at this in some depth in both directions, as has been discussed by a number of interventions, and will continue to do so with the in cooperation with the State Party as requested. I think that we would just make, in relation to the amended draft decision that has been referred to by many interventions this morning, we might, with your permission, just suggest one very minor further amendment relating to paragraph 2D in the amendment, where it asks for further work on how such architecture could be both eclectic and indigenous at the same time, which, as you know was one key area of difference between the ICOMOS World Heritage Panel and the State Party in relation to this nomination. We wonder if this is a little too specific and constraining to the discussions that we hope to have into the future with the State Party about the further development of this file, and wonder if this is just one possibility rather than the sole orientation that the committee might like to leave the State Party with as it adopts this amended draft. And yes, that's I think all the responses needed from ICOMOS at this time.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, ICOMOS. I wonder if the distinguished State Party wishes to take the floor. Madam, the floor is yours.
Yes.
Jordan,
yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To begin with, I would like to kindly ask if the suggestion that was just made by ICOMOS, if we can get it in writing so that we can better understand exactly what's being said, so that we can elaborate and give our response to the suggested suggestion that was just made. Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the government of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan and my delegation, I would like to express our sincere thanks and deep gratitude to the World Heritage Committee for its continuous support and efforts to safeguard cultural and natural heritage for the benefit of humankind. I would also like to reiterate Jordan's firm commitment to safeguard our heritage, tangible and intangible, to serve as a driver of cultural and socio-economic development, peace and stability. In view of this, I would like to reaffirm the reasons behind the decision of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan to seek the committee's approval for a deferral of a SALT eclectic architectural nomination, aiming at future inscription on the World Heritage List. The story of the eclectic architecture of As-Salt is unique in the Arab region. If we consider that the movement led by the Nabulsi stone masters shaped the image of As-Salt as we know it today, its future inscription shall shed light on a pivotal period in the history of this city, giving us insights into its heritage while creating virtuous academic and professional ties between Jordan and its neighboring countries. The authenticity of As-Salt architectural heritage is unaffected and undisputable, as acknowledged by the ICOMOS in its evaluation. Jordan today has 5 sites listed on the World Heritage List. None of them is part of a living city. The nomination of As-Salt eclectic architecture bears the significance to display architectural heritage within a living historic urban landscape. Therefore, it plays a strategic role to convey the message of heritage preservation to the young generations. Finally, in all its work on heritage preservation and conservation, Jordan is keen to send out a message of peace and harmony to the world, and As-Salt nomination is no exception. Today, As-Salt demonstrates a unique model of religious harmony in a city that exists in a volatile region that is witnessing sectarian, ethnic, religious conflicts with all the negative impacts we are seeing on many heritage and archaeological sites. In light of the above, Jordan is pleased to continue the work on the nomination of As-Salt file while through a deferral status in order to nominate it for inscription in a future session of the World Heritage Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. I can only assure you and repeat that after this very long discussion of today, we know much better what As-Salt means and how rich is concerning its heritage. No doubt about that, but we were asking and we are talking about the amendment. And technically, I'm afraid that we shall go now directly to the rapporteur and do try during our analysis of the draft document to simply clarify all the points which do still need to be clarified. Turkey wishes to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. We very much appreciate the recommendation by ICOMOS with regard to the subparagraph D of the paragraph 2. We believe that we should provide with the state party with more room for further improvements, and we should not limit the explanations in the file. So we propose ending the explanation with the word of modernization and deleting the remaining part, if it is accepted by the other other supporters of this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for this important remark, which allows me to go straight on to the decision, if I may. But the first step is, of course, to ask kindly Mr. Juma to inform us about the amendments. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. As you can see from the screen, the original draft decision had 2 paragraphs. Now, the distinguished delegates from Turkey, Kuwait, Lebanon, Tunisia, Portugal, Croatia, and Kazakhstan, they proposed to amend this draft decision, but they left the first paragraph intact without alteration. The second paragraph has been modified. Now it starts by defers the examination of nomination of assault eclectic architecture, origins, and evaluation of the architecture language in Levant, Jordan, on the World Heritage List in order to allow the state party, with advice of advisory body and World Heritage Center, if requested, to A, develop a comparative analysis including similar properties in the Levant and area of influence of Ottoman Empire. B, redefine the criteria in order to demonstrate what makes this architectural heritage important or exceptionally among other historical cities in the region as a cradle of new amalgamated expression of different styles. C, modify the boundaries of nominated property in order to be read as part of coherent whole. D, further elaborate on the definition of outstanding universal value of this architectural heritage in order to be considered an exceptional case in process of modernization. And the last part has just been modified by delegates of Turkey. And paragraph 3 considers that any revised nomination will need to be considered by an expert mission to the site. And the last paragraph 4 encourages the state party to consider seeking ICOMOS advice to address the above-mentioned recommendation. This is what was proposed by distinguished delegates, but we wanted to make a little bit change here, Mr. Chairman, to have a consistency. In the first paragraphs, we advised to change the word advisory body and to put ICOMOS. This is the language used in the draft decision of committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It is clear now. So let me please go straight further on to the decision of our committee. Para 1 adopted. Para 2, could you kindly, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Portugal, the floor is yours.
Just on the suggestion by Turkey, it's on CD, no, it's on D. Well, we're talking about an eclectic site. It's on its title itself. So, and we strongly underline the indigenous character of it. So, albeit for some technicalities, I think, in fact, I would suggest that we should add and further demonstrate how such an architecture could be both eclectic and indigenous at the same time, and keep the reference. Thank you.
Thank you. I seek your patience for a while. Peru, Excellency.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Yo aprecio de la propuesta de mi amigo el embajador de Portugal, siempre inteligente y sutil. Sin embargo, si añadimos esta frase, parecería que al futuro estamos supeditando la existencia del BUE a que se demuestre que se trata de una arquitectura ecléctica e indígena. Y si este supuesto no se da, entonces vamos a comprometer la candidatura a priori. Por esa razón pienso que sería mucho mejor dejar abierto este párrafo para que la reelaboración del expediente no establezca una suerte de precondiciones que va a rigidizar mucho el propio interés del Estado parte en fundamentar el BUE con vistas a una consideración positiva de la postulación del bien. Gracias, presidente.
Gracias. The floor will go back to Portugal, but not now, not immediately. Finland and Turkey first. Finland, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry that I came in between in this discussion. Something is happening behind your back that you maybe can't see. I was just confused why we were given credits in the French version of the document. We haven't really been involved in drafting this, so I would like to go along with the English version and take out Finland from the French version. Thank you.
Thank you, Finland. Now, Turkey. The floor is yours, Madam.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairperson. This request is based on the request of recommendation by ICOMOS, actually. So, as being respectful to the expertise of ICOMOS, we would prefer to give some time and some further elaborations on this file and to give some further rooms for the state party. We believe that the deletion will provide this opportunity to the state party to make further analysis whether it will be again possible to reformulate the file in this text, in this form or not. So we believe this will in favor of the state party to make further analysis, in-depth analysis in future. That's why we are recommending the deletion of the remaining part. Thank you.
Thank you. It is clear. Lebanon and Portugal. Lebanon, Ambassador.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais également intervenir sur cette question du comment cette architecture a pu être à la fois éclectique et indigène. Lorsque nous proposons d'élite le dossier, ça veut dire qu'il faut retravailler sur l'ensemble de la conception de la valeur universelle exceptionnelle. Il est possible qu'en retravaillant l'ensemble de la valeur universelle exceptionnelle, on ne parle plus d'éclectique, on ne parle plus d'indigène, et que ça soit tout à fait une autre façon d'aborder le problème de la valeur universelle exceptionnelle. Dans ces conditions, je pense qu'il faut enlever, nous sommes d'accord avec la Turquie et le Pérou pour supprimer cette dernière partie du paragraphe, parce qu'il est tout à fait possible que le nouveau dossier qui soit présenté ou qui soit étudié supprime complètement ces notions-là et se base sur tout à fait autre chose. Merci.
Thank you. Portugal, Excellency, how is your position in this very important
Thank
point?
you very much, Mr. President. Well, the recent debate just showed how much more subtle my good friend and colleague, the Ambassador of Peru, is than I am. I made my point. I do recognize that there are some fragilité in leaving that there, and I'm ready to go along with the rest. But I think I made my point. And I think that ICOMOS will take my point whenever we get back to this dossier. And that was the essential purpose of my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you very much for your understanding. And your point will be well remembered forever, no doubt. So let me please do try to reach any progress if possible. We are at paragraph 2 at the moment, and I would like to adopt it as amended. Para 3. Adopted as amended. Para 4. Adopted as amended. It means that now I declare decision 41, com 8b.13 adopted as amended, and we can move on to item 41, com 8b.14, which is draft decision United Arab Emirates, Khor Dubai, a traditional merchant's harbor. I now invite ICOMOS to present the nomination of Khor Dubai. But before I give the floor to the Secretariat, Mr. Balsamo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We received a factual error notification concerning the evaluation of this nomination from the United Arab Emirates, and is to be found on page 126 of the English version of document INFAID before, and on page 71 of the French version of the same document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Balsamo, for your presentation. And now ICOMOS has the floor. Madam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This nomination of Khor Dubai was deferred by the World Heritage Committee at its 38th committee in Qatar in 2014 in order to allow the state party to reconsider the limits of the nominated property, to deepen the urban, historic and comparative analysis, to develop the analysis of the role of historic Dubai as an international trade centre on a natural harbour, and demonstrate the uniqueness and the preservation of the waterway feature and role, and better explain the uniqueness of the elements of historic Dubai buildings, particularly the wind towers, as well as reinforcing legal regulatory protection and proving the effectiveness of the management system. The decision also recommended the state party to invite an ICOMOS advisory mission, and that mission was subsequently conducted, and the state party has resubmitted the nomination in January this year. Khor Dubai is centred on the Creek, a natural seawater inlet of the Persian Gulf, part of the historic centre of the city of Dubai, around which it developed rapidly in the 20th century. Its continuous use as a commercial waterway shaped the urban skyline on both banks of the creek and provided goods to the adjacent markets of Dera and Bur Dubai. The property comprises part of the waterways and its banks, 2 markets, as well as 3 historic neighbourhoods. In terms of categories set out in the convention, this is a site. The property is located in the city and Emirates of Dubai on a seawater inlet of the Persian Gulf. The map shows the nominated property in the buffer zone, and it highlights the creek with 4 sites around its edge. This picture is of the Gulf in 1965. Subsequently, the city developed rapidly in the second half of the 20th century, as this present-day view shows. What has been nominated are 4 small areas around the creek that have survived to reflect the way the continuous use of the creek as a commercial waterway shaped the development of trade. The property extends for about 2.5 kilometres from the mouth of the creek, which is now inland as a result of land reclamation. Traditional wooden boats still ply their goods along the creek, supplying markets on the banks. The property's urban landscape is said to showcase the century-long continuity of free trade traditions. 2 historic markets, rebuilt in the early 20th century, both open onto the creek and illustrate the direct interaction between water trade and the stationary sale of goods. In addition to the souks, The property includes 3 historic neighborhoods of Shindaga, Al Fayedi, and Al Ras. The neighborhood of Shindiga to the west controlled the entrance to the harbor and was where the customs building was located. On the same bank, further into the creek, the property includes the merchant neighborhood of Al Fayedi, and on the opposite bank, selected merchants' houses of Al Ras. Shindaga was originally built on a thin strip of land between the sea and the creek and hosted the residences of the ruling family and important merchants. In the 1980s, the municipality of Dubai decided to demolish the then abandoned neighborhood, and the completed demolition was carried out in only a couple of weeks. 2 of the trees and a few mosques survived. Within a few years, a new sensitivity towards heritage emerged, and with it the plan to reconstruct the neighborhood. The property nominated includes part of the reconstructed neighborhood, which appears to reflect the essence of the houses that once existed, rather than being based on detailed documentation and research. These are the mosques that survived the demolition and which have now been restored. On the same bank, further into the creek, is the merchant neighborhood of Al Fayedi, closest to the original nucleus of Dubai. It was originally the settlement of Persian merchants who moved to Dubai at the beginning of the 20th century and were involved in the trade of pearls. Across the creek to the north of Dera, only small areas around 3 merchant complexes are included in the neighborhood of Al Ras. The property includes houses, some of which are open to the public, as well as religious and public buildings, among them several mosques, a temple, schools, and a cultural center. And this is in the residential neighborhood of Al Ras and was built about 1890. A feature of the property are the wind towers, and you can see a selection here. ICOMOS considers that although Khor Dubai as a merchant's harbor is still actively involved in commercial trade and illustrates multicultural encounters in a cosmopolitan city of the 21st century, these active trade movements on the creek and its banks are not reflected fully in the architectural and urban testimony to a degree that could be seen as exceptional or outstanding. The physical attributes within the boundaries could not collectively be seen to represent or reflect in an outstanding way a cosmopolitan mercantile society shaped by free trade. The comparative analysis was developed around 3 themes: traditional and contemporary port cities, wind towers, and the reconstruction in the Gulf. In terms of port cities, ICOMOS did not consider that the analysis demonstrated how Khor Dubai could stand out, either in comparison with other inscribed sites in the regional context or ports in the Persian Gulf and the northern Indian Ocean. The wind towers, although of interest, do not appear in terms of form to be exceptional. And in regard to reconstruction, ICOMOS did not consider that the ongoing reconstruction of historic houses in Shindaga following their demolition constitutes an exceptional case of reconstruction that could be seen to be of value for its methodology or ideology. The continuity of use and function, although very visible on the water surface, in ICOMOS's view, do not dominate the architectural and urban components of the overall morphology of the Creek landscape. The boundaries of the properties remain fragmented, and this reflects the fragmented character of the historic nucleus of Dubai that survives. While ICOMOS and the State Party have entered into the process of formulating this nomination with good intentions, and in this case the additional work undertaken has not resulted in a nomination that ICOMOS can support for inscription. ICOMOS fully respects the desire of the State Party to sustain and promote the specificities of Khor Dubai as a prosperous port and how it contributed to the development of the city and its region. But having fully considered the revised nomination in relation to the recommendations of the committee and the possible avenues for exploration suggested by the advisory mission, ICOMOS considers that the property still suffers from weaknesses that are difficult to overcome. In conclusion, therefore, ICOMOS recommends that Khor Dubai, a traditional merchant's harbour, should not be inscribed on the World Heritage List. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. And now invite the committee members to express their comments. Kuwait is the first. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The pace of transformation in the Gulf and the phenomenon of urbanization stretching continuously from the vernacular to the modern that starts from the late 1940s until today's contemporary planning and architecture is a unique case that calls for careful consideration and thematic studies to be conducted and a more sympathetic comprehension to analyze the added value that the built heritage in our Gulf region has to contribute to the spectrum of the built heritage globally. Having said that, it is important to note that the sudden boom of urbanization is after all not too sudden, that the cosmopolitan society and modern facades were preceded by communities that settled around harbors, and that Khor Dubai remains today to be one of the most intact, authentic, and alive harbors of our Gulf region. From regional perspective, we actually consider that Khor Dubai has been able to preserve a remarkable degree. Its traditional relationship with the creek and the original spatial relationship of its historic neighborhoods, markets, banks, and harbor infrastructure. This nomination is tightly linked to the sustainability of activities intimately connected to trade, while the ICOMOS 2017 report questions again the impact of dredging of the Khor on the integrity of the property and narrowing the natural creek as a result of land reclamations and construction of Bani Yas Road. We find that the advisory mission underlined in a different part in the report, that dredging should be considered as a normal maintenance activity necessary for the creek to still exist and maintain trade activities and marine functions. We consider this nomination to demonstrate both the relevance and the continuity of traditional commerce in Dubai Creek and the material persistence of a cultural tradition based upon the morphological ensemble of the creek, the quays, and the souk. Therefore, we support the inscription of Khor Dubai, a traditional merchant's harbor, on the World Heritage List. The amendment we propose together with other distinguished committee members expresses our belief that this nomination does not deserve the status of non-inscription. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Now, Kazakhstan. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we have acquainted with the great attention with the ICOMOS report on the new Khor Dubai nomination. And we can see that ICOMOS final recommendation reiterates the comment made on the earlier 2014 nomination. Indeed, in 2014, we had the opportunity to visit the site and to appreciate the incredible vitality of the traditional commercial harbor of Khor Dubai. The visit permitted us to discover an unexpected Dubai with a distinct character and a harbor and a commercial function that has not been enough acknowledged by the analysis of experts. ICOMOS comments in the evaluation report, this is page 81, mentioned that the new port facilities of Jebel Ali, Port Rashid, and the Dubai Maritime City lead Khor Dubai harbor to function at a much reduced scale. On the same paragraph, ICOMOS report mentions that as a result of land reclamations, new infrastructure, demolition, and housing development, the link between the creek and its market has been obscured. In this regard, we would like the state party to comment on these observations by ICOMOS. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Finland wishes to take the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. This nomination was evaluated and presented to the committee during the 38th session in Doha as a recommendation for non-inscription. The committee, however, decided to give it a deferral, and since then the state party has put a lot of effort and work to the nomination file. All this just to face another evaluation resulting in the recommendation for not to inscribe the property on the World Heritage List. ICOMOS has been quite consistent in its assessment of the property. The committee has not. This is really unfortunate, and I only wish that we could avoid situations where the nominating state party is given too much hope on the future of its nominations. There is an interesting reflection by ICOMOS in the evaluation concerning trade port cities on the World Heritage List. To quote them, "It is striking that many of these cities apply very similar arguments to exceptionality, including the influences of multicultural merchants on their urban structure and architecture. Port and harbor cities can indeed be categorized in many ways by location and setting, use and function, etc. And I would be delighted to see a thematic study of ports or harbors in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Finland. And now the floor goes to Jamaica. But before that, if I may, I would like just to say that it is 12:48, and as I can already see pretty long list of the distinguished members of the committee ready to discuss, I am afraid that we will continue this very item and this very discussion after the lunch break. But anyway, it is just the first early warning, if I may. Now, Jamaica. Jamaica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jamaica thanks the State Party for putting forward this property at Traditional Merchants Harbour that has been described as a uniquely active and thriving commercial hub. Undoubtedly, this is a significant property that is testimony to free trade cultural tradition. We recall that the site was an originally deferred nomination during the 38th session of the committee. There are clear gaps in the analysis surrounding the present or the revised nomination surrounding conditions of integrity and authenticity. ICOMOS feels that criteria 2, 3, and 6, under which the property is nominated, is not adequately demonstrated, though we are of the view that criterion 3 is justified. Further, we note urban infrastructure development continues to be a major threat to the property. It is a view of the advisory body that several of the development projects will further alter the urban characteristics and setting of Khor Dubai. Mr. Chair, we do see merits in the amendment or the amended draft decision put forward by Kuwait and other states parties. But how do we reconcile the view of ICOMOS that the nominated property, and I quote, suffers from weaknesses that are difficult to overcome and do hinder its ability to project the history and use of the property and the important cultural exchanges it promoted in a way that could be seen as exceptional, to where we are with an amended draft decision that asks for an inscription to the World Heritage List. We would therefore wish to hear from the advisory body and the state party at this juncture we find ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Croatia. Croatia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We appreciate the extensive comparative analysis proposed in the nomination that situates the Khor Dubai traditional harbor in the larger framework of port cities. We consider that Khor Dubai is likely one of the best preserved and most complete traditional ports dedicated to wooden boats at the global level. It is very interesting to see a traditional working port in the very heart of the modern metropolis. We would, however, like to ask the state party on the role of the traditional souks in the nominated property. What is sold on the market and how do they connect with the core and his traditional mercantile past of Dubai? Thank you.
Thank you. Now Tunisia. Tunisia, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je ne vais pas parler du bien en lui-même. mais plutôt de ce qui me semble être une contradiction, ou plutôt une incompréhension, dans les rapports entre l'État partie et les instances qui le représentent d'un côté et l'ICOMOS de l'autre. En effet, il y a 3 ans, lors de sa session de Doha, le Comité du patrimoine mondial a demandé qu'une mission consultative de l'ICOMOS soit envoyée à Dubaï pour évaluer avec l'État partie s'il pouvait ou non présenter une nouvelle candidature d'inscription. Le rapport de la mission consultative d'octobre 2014 a établi clairement que le bien pouvait aspirer à faire prévaloir sa VUE sur la base de nouveaux critères et de limites nouvelles. Dans son rapport suivant, l'ICOMOS reconnaît que l'État partie, je cite, a préparé un dossier très complet qui suit la plupart des recommandations faites par les missions consultatives d'octobre 2014. Fin de citation. Néanmoins, l'ICOMOS continue de considérer que le site ne possède pas de VUE. Ma délégation s'est efforcée de comprendre ces deux positions contradictoires, du moins en apparence, mais n'y est pas parvenue. Cela d'autant plus que l'État partie, depuis 2014, semble avoir entretenu avec l'ICOMOS des échanges réguliers sur ce site, dégageant une bonne ambiance de travail avec l'organisme consultatif qui aurait laissé entendre que le site possédait les attributs de la VUE et qu'il pouvait candidater par conséquent à l'inscription. Pour autant, nous sommes aujourd'hui dans une situation de ne pas inscrire ce bien, ce que propose l'ICOMOS, comme s'il n'y avait pas eu d'échange utile et constructif entre les deux parties. Il y aurait, si j'ai bien compris, et à la lumière des discussions que nous avons eues avec les représentants de l'État partie, une contradiction entre le contenu des rapports de l'ICOMOS et ses conclusions. Et si tel est le cas, et nous en tenons non à la conclusion, mais au contenu des rapports de l'ICOMOS, nous proposons d'inscrire Khor Dubai sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci.
Merci. Thank you. Now the Republic of Korea. The floor is yours, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we understand, the State Party of United Arab Emirates has worked extensively in order to make this nomination come to light. We recognize that they have cooperated closely with ICOMOS through multiple channels, even utilizing the upstream process, and we commend their dedication on their endeavors. However, considering ICOMOS evaluation, it seems that there are differences between the State Party and Advisory Body regarding reconstruction. We would like to request the State Party briefly present their stance on the matter of reconstruction in the Gulf region for this nomination. Thank you.
One more. I wonder if I could possibly excuse Portugal, Indonesia, Turkey. You are on the list, as well as State Party and ICOMOS. Excellency, would you
I'm in your hands.
I'm the last who is going to be cruel. But anyway, it is almost 1, and it is pretty sure that we are not going to finish the whole procedure before lunch. So, if I may, I would like to stop our discussion at this and on this very item, passing the floor to Madame Tocharova with some information, as several side events are going to be just open during the lunch break. So, Madame Tocharova, the floor is yours, and at 3 we do continue with item 41.8b.14, namely Khor Dubai. Madame Tocharova.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And as it has become a standard practice, we have at least 3 or 4 side events every lunchtime. We have 3 events for today, starting at different times, however. You have them in front of, displayed on the screens. The Natural World Heritage Analysis by IUCN and UNEP starts at the Chamber Hall at 1:10 Then you have a side event which will take place in the Chamber Hall. The first one is in the AB room. This one is in the Chamber Hall, which will demonstrate the experience of one state party together with the World Heritage Center on the implementation of an upstream process, and taking into account that the item on upstream process will be discussed early next week. You might be interested to attend the event at 1:45. And at 2:10, another event on the contribution to conservation of world heritage in the Arab region, organized by Ikram Attar. So enjoy your lunch break and the side events.
Thank you. I wish you also a successful lunch break, and at 3 p.m. sharp we do continue. This very session is closed. It's almost 1 p.m. local time.